Welcome to the Bakersfield City Council meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 10 a.m., and the following Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, the Honorable Mayor Karen K. Go.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to call to order the 5:15 City Council meeting of July 15th, 2020. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go.
Here.
Vice Mayor Parlier.
Here.
Councilmember Rivera. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Weir.
Councilmember Weir, do you need to unmute?
Councilmember
Here.
Weir. Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
I'm here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Here.
And Councilmember Sullivan. Here.
Thank you. On March 4th, Governor Newsom declared a state of emergency in California due to COVID-19. The governor also passed several executive orders, including the suspension of some components of the Brown Act related to public meetings such as this. And as such, Council Members Smith, Freeman, and Weir are participating by phone, and all council votes tonight will be conducted by roll call. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad to have all of you here. Thank you for participating in the process. I know that because of COVID-19, several of you are out in the lobby. We will do everything to try to accommodate getting people in and out, and we want to welcome you. And some of you I know are standing outside, but we will do our best to work together. So thank you all for being here. And at this time, Councilmember Andre Gonzalez will lead us in the invocation, and then following that, Assistant City Manager Jackie Kitchen will lead us in the pledge. Would you all stand, please?
Won't you bow your heads and join me in prayer? Father in heaven, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity tonight to participate in a democratic process so that we may discuss ideas, issues of the day, and cast a vision and a plan for the future of our community. We thank you also for the many blessings you have bestowed upon each and every one of us and our entire community that we call Bakersfield. We ask that you be with all of us tonight as we make important decisions for our community. And we ask that you be with all those who are suffering this evening, particularly those who are dealing with and battling with COVID-19, either at home or in the hospital. And we ask that you be with also those loved ones who have lost members of their family or friends or coworkers to this pandemic. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and unto the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and you may be seated. Here are a few guidelines to help our meeting run smoothly. We request that you turn off your phones. Please be courteous in the use of cameras and videos. For safety reasons, and as a courtesy to others, no signs are allowed in the City Council chamber or in the lobby. Applause is allowed only during the presentations portion of the meeting, but it isn't allowed during other portions of the meeting. Please avoid any behavior that disrupts the meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please read the first item?
Public statements.
Thank you. Due to the governor's executive order, which waived the Brown Act provision requiring physical presence of the public in light of the pandemic, public comments have been encouraged to be made by email and phone to the city clerk. Those received in such manner have already been provided to the council. If you're here in person to make a public statement, please fill out a public speaker card and give that to the clerk. All statements are given a 3-minute time limit, 15 minutes per topic. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statements, please give those to the clerk, who will provide copies to the council. And if you're here to speak on the workshop matter 6A, we ask that you speak after staff's presentation on that matter. If you're here to speak on hearing items listed on the agenda under 9 or 10, now isn't the time to speak. You'll be given an opportunity when those matters are called. We're very interested and concerned with your issues. However, due to the public notice requirement of the Brown Act, the council can't take action when an item isn't on the agenda. The council can, however, refer your matter to committee or request that staff contact you. Again, please avoid any behavior that disrupts the meeting, such as repetitive statements or going over the 3-minute time limit. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers?
Mayor Go, correspondence was received in the city clerk's email and by phone, and those have been provided to the council for review. We have received 10 public statement cards, 5 regarding backyard hens, 2 regarding the Oversight Committee, and 3 regarding separate subjects. Our first public speaker this evening is Adam. Our next speaker will be Curtis Bingham, and the third speaker will be Noe F. Reyes.
Thank you. And may I have the cards, please? Thank you. Welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mayor Go. I think you guys know me. I'm Adam, and I am here because of the data breach that the city caused, and it's really impacted victims of violent crime in numerous ways, and I want you guys to hear the threats that we are now getting because you leaked our addresses. Play that again for the council to understand the seriousness of this issue. It is unforgivable that this occurred to begin with, and that it continues to occur, and that the council has not and does not take action, as does staff. I mean, it's absolutely offensive. And it's gotten to the point now where victims are gonna have to come here every meeting and come here and share their story until this is taken care of. I think you've all seen the statements from the County of Kern this week revoking the city's access to certain data because it was posted online. In addition to the impacts that this has had on victims, it poses identity theft risks for everybody. This is information that would have to be obtained manually, in person, through a fairly extensive process, and now it's been made available to people all over the world to download in bulk. So again, I just want to reemphasize, how serious this is, and I think I just want to replay this so that way you guys understand the seriousness of this issue.
Mr. Cohen, I think we've already heard that, so thank
Okay.
you. If you have something else, go ahead, or other than that, just
Well, I will
your
be back
statements.
at the next meeting, and we'll replay it then, because clearly this council has not taken action, despite over 1,500 emails from multiple community members. It's offensive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Next speaker, please.
Karen. Mayor.
Mr. Parlier. Vice
Hey, Adam. I'm going to have the police department reach out to you, too. If you've been threatened, I think that needs to be tracked down. And also, I'd like to have somebody from the city attorney's office reach out to Adam also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Next speaker, please.
Curtis Bingham, Noe F. Reyes. And following that, we will have the comments regarding backyard hens.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Oh, yes, Honorable Mayor, and to the staff, the board. My name is Curtis James Bingham Sr., street evangelist for our Lord and Savior, God Almighty, Jesus Christ, who truly is the only begotten Son of our Holy Heavenly Father, God Almighty. I also like to say thank you. From God we trust, that's how things work. And I also like to say I was here couple of meetings ago. And they were talking about the Pearl Harbor effect that a lot of cities was going to have that with the COVID-19. And you heard me say that our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ said he was sparing Bakersfield from that. Well, he did. So I want to take this time to thank him in heaven, because he's definitely present, because we did not have the Pearl Harbor effect, and that was a few months ago. And then I also like to say, there was 10 labor, 10, excuse me, there were 10 that had deadly diseases in the Bible. The Lord healed all 10, and only one came back and gave thanks. So I'm just want to come and thank you for passing the budget, especially with our strength of the city that was in there, which is law enforcement, Bakersfield Finest. Thank you very much. You guys have a good relationship with them. I've been here quite a few times, asking for everything whenever they need anything. And I just want to thank you guys for blessing them. And then I also would like to have everybody to remember, the Lord say, touch not my anointed and do my prophets no harm. All of you guys fit in up under that umbrella. Law enforcement fit in up under that umbrella too. And you got to be careful with law enforcement, because you can end up finding yourself fighting against God, because God Almighty Jesus Christ got a lot of children on the earth. And Romans chapter 13 was written for anybody who was born. He said law enforcement are his ministers. So you got to really, really be careful. The saddest time I've ever been here is hearing defunding law enforcement. There's no organization on earth should act nothing like that, because you can't tell what the people are going to do. If you're going to defund law enforcement, then you got to get all the people to say they ain't going to do no crime. Law enforcement don't do the crime. They got to go out and put the crime down. So it's a shame to hear something like that when they are working with 5% of a budget that the criminals got. Yeah, you say how they go out there, they just do it. The criminals got money everywhere. That's why crime is everywhere. All the corners is loaded with all kind of drugs and everything. They got money. Law enforcement working with 5% of what they got, and they still go out there and get it done. So let's be careful what we're doing with law enforcement, because without them, we can't do nothing. And our law enforcement, they are responsible for Proposition N. Now, a lot of people don't want to give them credit, but if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have that 1%. We're going to have to be honest and truthful and give them credit, because the people was crying about this response time wasn't here. We had a person come out, we paid $150 to go check. Okay, law enforcement was on the ticket, and that's the reason why it passed. They're responsible for a lot of new jobs and things like that. So let's bless them, and I pray God bless you. And city manager, I pray God bless you. You're special to me because you're great in my eyes, because the things you suffered is what make you a great man doing your job. So I pray God bless everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rickham. Next speaker, please.
Noe F. Reyes. And if the speakers regarding backyard hens can enter the council chambers, please. Bruce Bagwell, M.T. Marikel, Kirk Boland, Zoe Pelishek, and Becky Pelishek.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Noe Reyes. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak here. I've come here just sort of a last resort, I guess. I don't know where else to go. I have two beautiful girls that I've been fighting in the family law court system for quite some time, way more than any father should ever have to fight for his children. So I'm not getting any results there. They've taken away my 11-year-old without any warranted reason, and I have two pending family law cases for both my girls. And I've challenged both courts. Show me any evidence, produce any kind of factual substance of me committing any acts of violence, come up with at least a threatening message or anything. And they have nothing to answer that back. Instead, they just, it's almost as though we're just cookie cutter process and just go away. And in the meantime, I'm losing precious time with my daughters, and it's not about my feelings and the anguish and the stress that inflicts upon me. I'm not going to react like some of these emotionally driven maniacs out there rioting. Instead, I'm trying to go work within the system and to be heard by anyone that can help. It's about my daughters, and they need me in their life. I'm their father. They don't need someone else that gets plugged in or whoever their moms can bring in off the street or whatever. That's not their father. I'm their father. I'm the one who's been tasked by God to be their father and to be a good steward to my two daughters. So I'm just here to talk about the absolute egregious neglect of my rights as a father and my daughter's rights to have a father in their life by that building over there and the judges that sit in there. It's just, we're second-class citizens or something, and they make decisions off no evidence whatsoever, and it just sort of reeks of an ulterior agenda. Maybe it's the way the whole system incentivizes the separations of families or separating children from their fathers. And right now, we're living in a time where our society is failing in so many ways, and I feel like my daughters are vulnerable out there without me playing a larger role in their life. I didn't sign up to be a visitor. A visitor is what a prisoner gets with a family member or something. I'm in this to be a parent and to try to get parenting time with my daughters because they need me in their life, and without me in their life, they're vulnerable. And the court, the family law court, is just committing egregious child abduction, and so I don't know where else to go to talk about this. I really need some results or to talk to somebody that has the ability to make a difference.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. Would you see our city attorney here and maybe give her your contact information so she can follow up with you?
Thank you.
It's right
Thank you
over here
very
in the
much.
corner. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please. Oh, sorry, Councilmember Harley? Oh, okay.
The following 5 speakers are regarding backyard hens. Bruce Bagwell. Following Bruce, M.T. Marikel. Following M.T. Marikel, Kirk Boland, Zoe Pelishek, and Becky Pelishek.
Thank you. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Bruce Bagwell. I'm in Ward 3, and I'm here to support backyard hens. And started a petition called with change.org to support legalizing backyard hens 2 days ago, and we have over 200 signatures so far. I wanted to read one of the comments that somebody wrote. I'd love to be able to teach my kids, teenagers, and grandkids about working for their food and taking pride in raising their animals. The numerous benefits to owning and taking care of hens is so vast. Learning to grow food, teaching them to be responsible people, giving them something to work for, and get the satisfaction of achieving it, something that is lost today. Teach our kids hard work pays off, nothing or not to expect everything. And I thought that was really good. Got a whole bunch of comments like that. I've had chickens in the past and love the fresh eggs. I love what they do for my household and for my yard for growing things, and I like the feeling of self-sufficiency that I get, especially in this time of COVID where we run out of a lot of stuff. It's nice to have eggs in my backyard and not having to go to the store and find out they don't have them. So that's it. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
M.T. Marikel.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is M.T. Miracle. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you regarding backyard hens. I've spoken in the past several meetings and have shared several documents with you regarding the important topic of allowing citizens who live in the R1 zone the right to own backyard hens. I've encouraged you to look at the website, thebub.wixsite.com/bub, for factual and educational information regarding backyard hen ownership in an urban setting. The support for backyard hen ownership continues to grow because of the many benefits hens provide families. Today I'm going to focus on one of these benefits. I refer to this benefit as biorecyclers and zero-waste partners. The most economical and politically compelling reason for backyard hen ownership is to employ chickens to biorecycle kitchen, garden, and yard waste. Employing chickens means all that biomass, food, grass clippings, leaf, yard waste, never has to leave the backyard. Most local governments are budget strapped. Encouraging the use of family flocks as biomass recyclers is an expense-cutting opportunity to slash the amount of funds spent on managing trash that has to be picked up, transported, often transferred, and disposed of. Nationwide, food scraps make up about 17%, 29 million tons of what we send to landfills. Yard waste totals about the same amount, 33 million tons. Food and yard waste combined represent about 28% of all municipal solid waste generation. With the assistance of backyard hens, most of that household organic waste could be biorecycled in backyards and never even leave the property. Imagine the city of Bakersfield taking a step in the direction of zero waste. Just as it implies, in a zero waste system, there isn't any waste. Everything becomes residuals that can be recycled to one form or another. Backyard hens actually save the city money. I continue to be available for questions and discussions. I look forward to the opportunity of working collaboratively with you as we work towards allowing backyard hens. Thank you again for your time and interest in the topic of backyard hens.
Thank you, Mr. Miracle.
Kirk Boland. Following Mr. Boland, Zoe Pelishek and Becky Pelishek.
Thank you. And I'll ask those of you in the back, if you can try to socially distance, just physically distance as much as you possibly can. I know it's crowded back there, but those of you who are waiting. And then if there are empty seats, staff, if you can show them to those seats. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor Go and Bakersfield City Council. My name is Kirk Boland, and I live in Ward 4. I'm here tonight to express my support in the backyard hens in the city limits of Bakersfield. Keeping backyard hens is a part of a growing movement to live a healthier, more sustainable lifestyle and reducing our carbon footprint. A small flock of hens in our backyards has many benefits, from supplying you with fresh eggs, giving you good fertilizer for gardening, and providing lively pets. It can also teach children the process of caring for the hens and to help them develop a greater appreciation for the food on their plates. Backyard hens also provide excellent pest control. They eat ticks, flies, mosquitoes, and spiders. Eggs laid by backyard hens also have more vitamin A, omega-3s, vitamin E, beta-carotene, and have less cholesterol and saturated fat than industry-sourced eggs. During the COVID-19 pandemic, there was times where the stores were sold out of eggs. And when they did have them, you were limited to the number of eggs you could buy. At my house, we have four kids. 2 of them are teenagers. Just a couple days ago, they went through all by themselves a dozen of eggs. And as far as noise goes, hens typically only make a noise when they lay an egg or a predator, which is typically at best once a day. And the decibel level of that noise is about 60, as opposed to dogs, which the decibel level of their noise is 80 to 90, which is more frequent than that of a chicken. Recently, I was able to make contact with the San Diego Deputy Director of Development Service Department, Leslie Sennett, regarding their ordinance that they put into effect in 2012. The response I received was the ordinance allowing backyard chickens has not had a major impact on the amount of calls received by Code Enforcement Division. Calls regarding this issue are very rare. There are no other problems regarding this ordinance that I am aware of. I hope the Bakersfield City Council will allow its citizens the opportunity to provide for their families and have a greater level of self-sufficiency, as well as a healthier way of life. I appreciate your consideration and ask for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Boland. Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Zoe Pelishek, Becky Pelishek, and the following 2 speakers who will be speaking on the Oversight Committee, if you could please enter the council chambers, Patrick Jackson and Mo Ali.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself and go ahead.
My name is Zoe Pelishek, and I'm here because I support raising backyard hens. I support raising backyard hens because it would allow people to be more self-sufficient in being able to produce their own eggs and protein. And backyard hens would be a good resource to have in times of crisis. People would have their own supply of eggs and protein and wouldn't have to depend on the government. And this would give the opportunity to youth like me who want to experience raising hens. It would allow me to do it myself in the future.
Thank you. Do you have anything further?
No.
Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you for listening.
Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Becky Pelishek?
Welcome. Please introduce yourself and go ahead.
Thank you. I am Becky Pelishek. I'm in Ward 5. I just wanted to speak up on my support of having backyard hens. It's important to me and my family to be able to be self-sufficient and to be able to, especially in times like this, to be able to have, just go to our backyard and to be able to get what we need, whether it be a source of eggs or if we need it, meat. It also teaches my children how to care for animals, how to then be self-sufficient themselves. So it's important to me. We've always wanted to be able to expand into chickens, but we haven't been able to in the part of town that we're in. But if it was expanded to all city residents instead of county residents, we would be able to. And then we wouldn't have to worry about, buying a bigger lot of land, that sort of thing. So if possible, we would love this to be approved and allowed within city limits. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Everybody had talked on this topic. Just as an FYI, it is coming back as a workshop item on August 12th to the council. So show up then. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, next speakers, please.
The next two speakers are speaking on the Oversight Committee, Patrick Jackson and Mo Ali. And then following that, we have Jacqueline Coyle.
Mr. Jackson, are you in the house? He's on his way. Okay, thank you.
He's on his way.
Oh, he's on his way. He's not here yet. Okay. Let's call the next one and then come back.
Mo Ali.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself and go ahead.
Oh, it's hot. Hello, I'm Mo Ali, and I am the founder and president of the Next Step organization. I am here to speak on the changes that I believe should be implemented in BPD and why I feel that a police oversight committee will be beneficial. I will start with my first question. Why I believe changes should take place within the police department. For accountability, transparency, and to build the community trust. Currently, the community that we represent does not feel safe, served, nor protected. BPD is responsible to serve and protect, maintain public order, safety, enforce the law, and investigate criminal activity. However, in recent years, our police brutality incidents and the officer-involved shootings have gone with little or no accountability, transparency, or communication with the community. Data research indicates that black men are 20 times more likely to be killed by law enforcement than a white man. Research also shows that black women, transgendered people, Native Americans, and Latin communities are being killed and/or assaulted by law enforcement at a higher rate. This has created a lack of trust for the law enforcement in our community due to the lack of accountability, transparency, and too many failures to properly invest officer-involved shootings and complaints, leaving the community to feel that there is no justice or trust. In order to build trust, there must be transparency and communication with the community. I believe that a police oversight committee would provide valuable outside insight by bringing equality and fairness It would act as a bridge between law enforcement and the community to mend the gaps of trust and communication while holding our officers accountable. The most effective way to achieve public safety in our local community results from police and community members working together to create public safety and transparency. At the same time, it increases public satisfaction of police and increases positive attitudes towards officers. A police oversight committee also increases the community willingness to call in tips and to be active in helping to solve crimes in our community. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Ali.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next speaker, please.
Mayor.
Councilmember Gonzalez, you have a comment
Yeah,
before our next speaker starts.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, thank you, Ms. Ellie, for your comments tonight. I'd like to ask City Manager Clegg to connect with the speaker and perhaps invite her to participate in the Citizens Review and Task Force. Thank you.
Madam City Clerk, next speaker, please.
Patrick Jackson, and following Patrick Jackson, Jacqueline Coyle.
I'm going to speak in his place. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. No, you're good. Thank you.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
May I remove this?
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. I am Artisa Moten. I'm here to talk about the Oversight Committee. Police Oversight Committee can be beneficial not for the individual citizen, but also for a larger community, police and sheriff departments, and even elected appointed officials. The actual benefits that occur depend on how well the involved groups work together and this type of model implemented. Some potential benefits are citizens are given a place to voice concern outside of the law enforcement agency. Oversight can help hold police officers and Sheriff's Department accountable for officers' actions. Oversight agencies can help improve the quality of the department's internal investigations of alleged misconduct. The community at large can be reassured and disciplined in being imposed when appropriate, while also increasing transparency of the disciplinary practice. Oversight agencies can help improve community relations by fostering communication between the community and police agency. Oversight agencies can help reduce public concerns about high-profile incidents. Oversight agencies can help increase the public's understanding of law enforcement policies and procedures. It can improve department policies and procedures. Policy recommendations can prevent issues by identifying areas of concern and subsequently offering opinions to improve policing. Agencies can assist jurisdiction in liability management and reduce the likelihood of costly litigation by identifying problems and proposing corrective measures before a lawsuit is filed. And last but not least, mediation has multiple benefits to both sides, police officers and citizens. If the oversight agency provides mediation solutions, it can help citizens feel more comfortable with complaining. It's really important that the Oversight Committee be added to your agenda so that we can start addressing and building trust within our community. I also have a question. Which council member is over the Safety Commission?
We'll answer that. We'll address that at the end.
Thank you.
Do you have anything further?
Nope.
Ms. Mosen, thank you for your comments. Would you see the Assistant City Clerk in the back, just so we can get your information since you took Mr. Jackson's place?
Okay.
And then, is there somebody who can address that? Vice Mayor?
Yeah, if staff could just reach out to her and answer a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The last speaker of the evening is Jacqueline Coyle.
Lena, if you can just get Ms. Mosen's information since we didn't get a speaker card. Welcome, Ms. Coyle. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Jacqueline Coyle. I hope everybody got to see the Bakersfield Californian this morning with my opinion op-ed. It's very important to me that the past 15 years, the city has been advertising addresses. I grew up in the poorest district in Bakersfield, thank you for our park. But along with that comes a lot of violence. It comes with gangs. It comes with so many outside threats that most people do not have to deal with. It is reprehensible that the city decided to post our information, then decided that it wasn't worth their time to address the problems individually. Now, I have to go through public record requests to even see if my address was made public. You have no idea how frustrated and how deeply hurt I am by the city that I absolutely love. And that is all I have to say on the matter.
Thank you, Ms. Coyle. Would you please see our city attorney right here, and she'll follow up with you. Vice Mayor? Oh, took care of it. All right. Madam Clerk, are there any other speakers? Thank you. So next item, please.
Under workshops, we have item A, issuance of reassessment district number 20-1, City in the Hills refunding bonds.
I'll wait while the city clerk puts the presentation up, please.
Mr. McKeegan, we just missed a
Oh.
public speaker. So, Ms.
right.
Abraham? Madam City Clerk, would you just like to?
Jamie Abraham, could you please enter the council chambers?
Jamie Abraham, can you hear us in the lobby? Staff, can you just help her come in?
Lena's looking, she's not in there.
Oh, she's not in there. Okay, it doesn't look like she's in there.
Oh, she found her.
Ms. Abraham? Please introduce yourself and go ahead.
My name is Jamie Abraham. I'm a local educator. I'm a restorative justice teacher within our city. I'm here to speak on the accountability with our policing. Within education, there's known disparities that have happened with discipline. And alongside that in comparison, within our policing, there are disparities as well. In response to that with education, there's been statewide oversight. And I believe that there needs to be oversight with our policing as well. That's transparent in our entire state. And we need to do something about it here locally. So we need to add that to our agenda. We need to discuss it as a community. We oversee it with our children through education. So we need to oversee it with our public as well, our adults as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Abraham. And now, Mr. McKeegan, let's go ahead. And Madam City Clerk, if you would just read that item one more time.
Under workshops, we have the issuance of reassessment district number 20-1, City in the Hills, refunding bonds.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. McKeegan.
Good evening, Mayor Go, council members. Randy McKeegan, Finance Director for the City of Bakersfield. Let's see, we'll wait for that presentation to pop up here. You don't have it? resend it via email if you'd like.
Let me see if I can find it. Okay, I found it. This wasn't put on the desktop.
Thank you, City Clerk.
Oops. 1 second. 1 second. I need to share this.
All right, there we go. Once again, good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members. The item I have before you this evening relates to an assessment district that the city has been a trustee for the last 15 years or so. It was established in 2005 and has had some significant financial difficulties since it was established. We've updated the council and given them briefs on this last 2 summers to give you an update on where we stood, and we're going to continue that update now with a new plan. As you can see in this map, Assessment District 05-1, established again in 2005, is in Ward 3, is north of Highway 178 and across the street from the Mesa Moran Sports Complex. Makes up about over 1,400 primarily single-family residential parcels, but there are also 4 large parcels. You'll see that in the southwest and northeast portions of the district. Formerly owned by, the southwest portion was formerly owned by a company called Mountain View Bravo. The northeast was owned by Regent Land Development. And those 4 parcels are really what we want to focus on because they are really the reason we are where we are currently, and we're going to be really relate to how we're going to move forward, putting this district on a better footing. As a review of the history of the City and Hills, again, it was formed in 2005. And soon after, during the Great Recession, it faced a lot of negative impacts because of the slowdown in the housing and the economy. With those slowdowns, some significant portions or assessments were not paid, specifically in land owned by those 2 large developers that I noted. And that created the need for judicial foreclosures filed by the City Attorney's Office in 2010 on 147 parcels. The majority of those parcels were owned by Regent Land, but it also included the 2 parcels in the southwest portion of the development. To help cure those delinquencies, the city worked with the county tax collector's office, and we were able to put them up for a tax sale, but there were no bids, no interest on those properties. So those delinquencies continued, and the reserves, which are reserves are set aside in every assessment district bond to help make payments when delinquencies occur. So we had to draw on those reserves on all payments from 2015 to 2019. Again, those reserves were those delinquencies resulted in a depletion of those reserves to the point that in last year's bond service payment in 2019, there were not sufficient funds to make the payment in September, so we had to hold payment until further assessments were collected later in December of that year. These delays will continue if no changes are made. We expect that a shortfall will again result in a delay in the upcoming payment due in September 2020. So looking as we go into 2020, we have a significant level of outstanding amounts specifically related to those 4 parcels owned by Regent Land and formerly owned by Mountain View Bravo. It amounts to about $8.6 million, including $3.4 million in penalties and interest and $1.6 in future assessments. There are some encouraging signs within the area. We talked about this last year, but an actual agreement was signed by Bakersfield City School District and Regent Land to sell those large parcels to the northeast to them to build a school. We also mentioned this last year. We had 137 parcels up for sale through the county tax sale process in 2019, and 106 of those properties were sold to 28 different individuals, entities, whether they be potential investors or developers. We talked about this last year and the year before in the presentations given to council. We use the term an ultimate loss. And as these delinquencies continue, there is a very real possibility that the bond will have to be declared as an ultimate loss, which means that the bondholders will have no possibility of receiving their return on their investment because of these continuing built-up assessment delinquencies. So that's a very real possibility, and it points that out here in this particular calculation here. As I said, last year we had to delay our bond payment, and this shows that, again, the available amount to make the bond payment for the upcoming September 2020 payment is about $544,000. The total amount that will be due in September is over $1 million, so we will have a shortfall of over $470,000. Again, we will have to wait for future assessments to be able to make that bond payment. As you can see, if this continues, next year we expect the delinquency or the shortfall to be over $708,000. So this will continue on until the bond matures in 2020, 24, 25. So with this very real possibility of a total or an ultimate loss being declared, we determined that we needed to look at some other options. And Regent Land Development actually proposed a workout plan to us, and we listened to it. We thought that we can't just let this particular development continue on and have those large assessments kind of weighing down the possibility of development. So the plan that Regent set forth and that we are actually presenting to you today really creates a new reassessed engineered or reassessed district and refunds the existing bond. This creates two bonds, a Series A bond, which is a senior bond. It will contain the properties of the performing properties, which is the value of the performing properties, which is about $3.6 million. So these are the properties that have no outstanding delinquent assessments on them. And with the reduced interest rate, it will result in a reduction in the existing property holders' assessments of 10% over the remaining life of the bond. This bond will be purchased in a private placement. It will not be put on for a public sale, not through the municipal bond market at all. It doesn't also require reviews or ratings by Standard & Poor's or Moody's. So we have a specific investor that will be buying this particular bond in a private placement purchase. The second portion of the bond, a junior bond or a subordinate bond, will be created that carries the value of the delinquent properties owned by Regent Land, owned by formerly Mountain View Bravo, and owned by those 106 or 28 investors that purchased land last year. The value of this will be $2.3 million, and it will be purchased by Regent Land. It will be split into two segments. The bond, the larger portion of the bond will be a $2 million bond that equals the value of the Regent Land and the Mountain View Bravo properties that they own. That will be tendered to the city, which means it will be given to the city and therefore defeasing or eliminating that debt after the close at the end of this month. So that bond will actually go away once the bond, our Regent Land gives it, or as the term is, tenders it to the city. There will be a smaller bond, about $270,000, that will be held by Regent Land, and that contains the value of the 106 parcels that were purchased last year by various land prospectors, so to speak. So with this plan, this is the former district. We will be reassessing that district and removing those non-performing properties and creating District 20-1, removing the properties that were once assigned to Mountain View Bravo and Regent Land, and creating a district that only contains paying, performing properties, and therefore putting on better standing for the remaining life of the bond, which goes again to 24-25 fiscal year. So, with this review, with review by staff, discussion with our financial advisor, bond counsel, it was determined that this was the best and most efficient and effective way forward to put this district on firm standing and solid ground. As a reminder, assessment districts do not incur any general fund costs. The bond service and related administrative costs are paid for by the assessments that are collected by the property holders. So there's no general fund costs or any other city cost related to managing these. So we're asking council to accept this plan and in turn approve 3 resolutions that are required for this action. The first is a resolution of intention. A resolution of intention just says that the council and the city are plan to refund the old bond and accept a reassessed district. The resolution of confirming a reassessment accepts the engineering report that that was required for this reassessment, and a final resolution is required that basically accepts, that says the council will move forward and issue a new bond. We're also asking that you authorize the finance director, me, to do whatever, to complete the necessary paperwork and other actions that are required to complete this refinancing. Before I ask council for action, I would like to specifically thank Josh Rednick at the city attorney's office for helping me through this. He actually was on working through the problems of this district well before I became finance director, so he's had a lot of experience with this. I also want to thank our financial advisor, Jim Fabian, with Fieldman Roll-Up, our bond counsel, Patricia Ikar, with Oric Harrington and Sutcliffe, and our underwriter, Jose Vera, with Raymond James. They're all available via Zoom or in chambers if you have questions for them, and I also am available for questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. McKeegan. I see we have a couple of guests standing. Does anybody see an open seat? If you could just raise your hand. There's one over here and one over there. So welcome and thank you. Madam City Clerk, did we receive any speaker cards for this matter? We have none, and so now we'll go to council for comment and action. Councilmember Weir, are you on the phone?
I am. Thank you, Mayor.
Would you like to speak?
Absolutely. Thank you. You know, these bonds were issued in 2005. I was elected in 2006, and it's been haunting me. This assessment district has been haunting me ever since. So I would really like to thank Mr. McKeegan and Finance Department and the City Attorney's Office Department for coming up with an innovative plan to make this work. I met with them several times. This has been going on for months. And the first couple times we met, I wasn't interested in this at all because it's been promised before and it didn't come through. And so the last couple times we talked, it became very positive, and we received a letter of commitment, a line of credit that we would be able to advance money on, and it became a reality. So thank you one and all for working on this. Hopefully this will resolve this assessment district's woes until the bonds are paid off. And with that, I move staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Councilmember Weir. Colleagues, I don't see any other requests to speak. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Parlier.
Aye.
Councilmember Rivera. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Weir.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman.
Aye.
And Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. McKeegan. Lots of effort there and a positive outcome. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Consent calendar items 8A through 8AP for approval. A staff memorandum was received requesting item 8X be removed from the agenda.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thanks, Mayor. Does any council member wish to recuse themselves from an item? Does any council member wish to remove a consent item for separate consideration? Seeing none, I make a motion that we approve consent calendar items 8A through 8P for approval, along with the noted corrections by the city clerk.
Vice Mayor Parlier, 8A through 8AP, correct?
It's a little difficult with this thing on, but that is correct. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Parlier.
Aye.
Councilmember Rivera. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Weir.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman
Aye.
and Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Thank you very much. Let's just take a brief break and we'll reconvene in about 5 minutes. Madam City Clerk, next item, please.
Public hearings.
Thank you. Our next item, public hearings. Each side will be allowed 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes for all speakers per side. So it's important that you identify yourself, make your statement succinctly so others may speak. We'll hear statements from those opposed to staff's recommendation first. Then we'll hear from those who'd like to speak in favor of staff's recommendation. If there's testimony on both sides, each side will be allowed a 5-minute rebuttal. There's a clock on the TV screens behind me which indicate 15 minutes. Please step to the microphone, identify yourself. After 14 minutes, a yellow light will come on, and at the end of 15 minutes, a red light will flash indicating your time is up, so quickly end your statements at that time. You may ask questions during your statement, but they won't be addressed until the public hearing is closed. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, please give those to the clerk. She'll provide copies to the council. Please be courteous to all who wish to speak. Unless there's approval by the majority of the city council, there's a strict 15-minute time limit per side. So please be concise. Avoid repeating the remarks of the previous speakers. Madam Clerk, please read the first public hearing item.
Public hearing to consider general plan amendment zone change number 19-0292.
Thank you. Mr. Boyle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. Our first item on tonight's hearing agenda is, in fact, general plan amendment and zone change number 19-0292. The request for the general plan amendment would change the general plan designation from a general commercial to a light industrial designation. The zoning request would change the zoning on the site from a C2 regional commercial to an M1 light manufacturing. The site in question is the 20 acres located in the northeast corner of South 8th Street and
Taft Highway.
Correct.
Taft Highway.
In the southern quadrant of the city, immediately east of the Highway 99 corridor. Approval would provide for the development of the Love's Travel Stop and Country Store. Being processed concurrently with that is a site plan review and conditional use permits that have been or are scheduled to public hearing at this point in juncture. Little sidebar on that entitlement would provide for automobile and truck fueling stations, a 3,600 square foot fast food restaurant, convenience store, and a truck maintenance facility. Also under consideration tonight is the adoption of an environmental document. And with that said, staff and the Planning Commission would recommend adoption of the resolution, adopting the mitigated negative declaration, and approving the general plan amendment, and a first reading of the ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Bakersfield. That completes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle. Mr. Clegg, anything? At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? If so, please step forward to the microphone. I don't see anyone, so is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of staff's recommendation? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and return it to council for comment and action. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Motion to approve staff recommendation.
We have a motion. I don't see any requests for comments, so Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Parlier,
Aye.
Councilmember Rivera, Councilmember Gonzalez,
Aye.
Councilmember Weir,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman,
Councilmember Freeman?
Aye.
and Councilmember Sullivan.
Aye.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public hearing to consider general plan amendment, zone change number 19-0035, appeal. We've received email correspondence on this item, which has been provided to the council. We received one email in support and 17 in opposition.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, Paul Johnson, Planning Director. Today, this is a general plan amendment zone change request that was going from residential to commercial. Specifically, this is an appeal to the Planning Commission action, which denied the amendment to the Metropolitan Bakersfield General Plan from LMR, low medium density residential, to GC, general commercial. And it also denied the change in zone classification from RS, residential suburban, and R1, one family dwelling, to C1, neighborhood commercial. Project site, approximately 11 acres, located at the northeast corner, Hosking Avenue and Wyble Road. The surrounding area development is primarily single-family residential. Again, this is the land use designation going from LMR to GC, and the zoning, which would go from RS and R1 to C1, which is neighborhood commercial. Tonight, you're going to get comments on surrounding commercial zoning within a half mile of the site. These rings show the half mile and a quarter mile. The items in red and light red or pink to the north are the commercial sites. It should be noted that the item to the north is the C1 zone. The rest are C2 or regional commercial. All these sites are undeveloped with commercial uses. There are no commercial uses. And the site with the black circle is the only site right now that we have an approved site plan on, and that is an approved site plan that includes some residential, multi-tenant, retail, a hotel, and a fuel station. So on December 9th, 2019, the Planning Commission considered extensive public comments, and after deliberation, they concluded that the project cannot be considered as a whole because there was no site plan submitted. They concluded that the zoning was premature for the intersection since it was vacant commercial at the southwest corner, and the proposed fuel station a quarter mile to the east, so another fuel station was not necessary at this site. And with the shift towards internet commerce, the highest and best use of this site they felt would be single family or multifamily. Consequently, they voted 3-2 with 2 commissioners absent to deny the request. On December 13th, an appeal was submitted, and the appellant will speak more on these. And that those basis for that was an irregular shape and existing constraints make single-family development on the site difficult and costly. This is an infill site along 2 arterials, which is an ideal location for neighborhood commercial use. And there was no neighborhood commercial or C1 zone along Hosking Avenue. And again, one of the previous slides showed that the C1 was to the north. Therefore, this, according to the appellant, would provide a walkable and convenient destination for the neighbors. So your council has several options tonight. One, you could deny the appeal, in which case it would retain the single-family development on the site. You could uphold the appeal, which would allow development of a neighborhood commercial on this site. Or you could uphold the appeal with a more restrictive zone. And those options include a PCD overlay or a planned commercial development overlay, so the site could be zoned, in this case, C1 PCD, and with that, the Planning Commission would have to approve the site plan. Or you could zone it exclusively PCD, which in turn your commission would consider and approve the site plan. So as an extension of the Planning Commission, it is staff's recommended motion that you uphold the decision of the Planning Commission and deny the appeal to amend the land use designation and deny the appeal to change the zone district. After public testimony, if your council has a different motion they would like to make, staff is available to help craft that wording, and we can also clarify the yay and nay votes because appeals can be a little bit tricky at times. And this concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We have some guests who are standing. If you see an empty seat, would you just wave your hand just so we can get all our guests seated? Staff, if you can help get our guests seated, please. I'm just going to wait a minute until we get people seated. We have any other empty open seats? Just wave your hand, please. Thank you. And at this time, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? That is, anyone who wants to change the land use from residential to the commercial development, which may include a gas station. So let me just see by show of hands how many people would like to speak to that. 1, 2, okay. Please introduce yourself and go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Go, Vice Mayor Parlier, and members of the City Council. My name is Brandon Martin. That's Brandon Martin, and I represent the Henson family on this neighborhood commercial project at the corner of Hosking and Weibel in Ward 7. This is a project that has a lot of advantages for the neighboring community and the city. Specifically, it's convenient commercial, low-impact neighborhood in an area that doesn't have that. And we'll hear a little bit more from our engineer, Fred Porter, as he talks about the paucity of that. The way these neighborhoods are supposed to grow, according to your general plan, is that we're supposed to have a mixed use for the benefit of the residential. Sometimes you want to go grab some gasoline on the way to work or when you're in a hurry to get to an important city council meeting, and you don't want to have to drive out of the way to do so. You want to be able to walk to go get some donuts or some ice cream with your family. This is the promise of a walkable community that's not too high intensity. The reality is that there are no plans that we have to draw a major anchor to attract traffic from all over the city. The economics don't really work in this location to bring in an IMAX theater anyway. That doesn't work. But what does work is uses that specifically benefit the community. It's a great welcome red carpet that complements the city's already existing investment in the KP Sarka Park. Right, this is the route that will often bring people who come from out of town for big AYSO tournaments. And right now, they currently see a unimproved field that doesn't even have sidewalk and gutter on one side, and that has had some problems in terms of code enforcement and things like that you'd want to look at. So the idea of putting something that is a real architectural standard-setting project on this piece of property in Ward 7 improves it drastically. I like to think that it's an architectural standard that could be, some of these things could be borrowed, put in a specific plan, and help govern development of commercial throughout the area. The sidewalk and gutter is important because this area goes to the Stony Brook Junior High, and you have children who are walking on the side of the road when there's no sidewalk, and it's dangerous. And our project helps fix that. Not only do we widen the road, which is a benefit in terms of traffic impact, but we also put down the sidewalk and gutter that frankly should be there, and that would allow that junior high probably to have a greater chance of obtaining a Safe Routes to School grant, and would all make us feel better about safety, I think. Also, it's an enhancement of public safety. The field as it is located right now is dangerous, and you'll hear more about that from other speakers. But the reality is that our neighborhood upscale commercial project will have security, and we've made commitments that will definitely enhance safety. And given the time that we live in and the uncertainties, I normally don't like to mention, oh, there's a giant tax benefit for the city from this small neighborhood commercial development. But the reality is that property tax revenues are going to go up and sales tax revenues are going to go up from this project. It's a good one all around, serving both the city and the neighbors. But we are here on appeal, and you probably wonder why. I entered this project after the Planning Commission loss, so I wasn't present for that. As staff just pointed out, it was a very slim loss. We lost by 1 vote with a minimum possible quorum. There were 2 hearings on this project, and if you count the votes, the majority of the Planning Commission agreed with us. We have a majority of the Planning Commission if you count both the first hearing and the second hearing. Unfortunately, some people just didn't show up the second hearing. I also think there were a couple of other concerns. The first is that a community group that has sat down and negotiated with us in good faith, collected a bunch of postcards, they're stock postcards. They indicate a kind of community opposition, but as I understand, the pitch was largely about our project generating homelessness problems. That was a big topic of consideration before your council at the time that this was originally agendized, and public safety problems. And the reality is that there's nothing in the record to support those claims as flowing from our proposed project. They're scary. There's something the community should be concerned about, but there's something that we've entirely mitigated for, and that we believe we're an improvement in terms of public safety. I think that a lot of the reasons that were cited by staff in the report, also from the Planning Commission level, they're basically not supported by evidence. They're speculative in terms of the way the future will look. Amazon.com replacing retailers, urban blight. There's not a lot of commercial there to be blighted in the first place, and we're putting up, we've basically hired one of the best architects in Southern California to do a landmark project here. The idea that all of commercial is going to be wiped out by COVID-19 or something like that is highly speculative. My guess is we're still going to need some gasoline, and we're still going to need those family centers and restaurants that power our community. When I was growing up, I used to like to go to Dewars. My friends from BHS in particular had that idea of that being a kind of like community center that was part of their memories of what it would be like to go to school. When I went to UCLA, that place was Diddy Reese. When I went to UC Berkeley, that place was maybe Zachary's Pizza. We all have that shared connection and memory. I think the McKinley Junior High School students are going to have the same experience of this project, and it's going to be a big benefit. And they'll think back, sometimes 20 or 30 years, on memories they made at our neighborhood commercial center. The other reason why our project may have not been successful at the Planning Commission level is because it wasn't the project it is today. When it was originally introduced, it had a notch property. Councilmember Parlier and others did a great job in urging us to improve and protect the community of Ward 7 and acquire that property so that we're not building it around, like the Las Vegas Strip where you have that little shack and then there's the billion-dollar property around it. That's no more. We're now a complete, healthy, and whole project. We have really first-rate architectural documents and designs that we prepared, and many commitments. In fact, it's my understanding that in talking with staff, in talking with members of the council, and talking with various community stakeholders, aside from the 3 individuals who run a NIMBY group called RAG, where we weren't able to accommodate everything that was asked for, aside from the NIMBY group, we have been able to accommodate every single request. We have trash cans that are protected from attracting homeless people, given a model from a WinCo that was suggested by a city council member to make this better. Staff has done a great job in giving us positive feedback, and we haven't said no to anything. So this project is now before you on de novo in terms of appeal, which means that you're not limited to the record of the Planning Commission. This is your independent judgment based on the record that we make tonight. And I hope that you give us a fair consideration. Your options, as staff just summarized, are to approve, and we hope that you do that. If you listen to my clients, who will be the final speakers in our presentation on behalf of the applicant tonight, I think what you'll notice is that these people have lived, the family still lives in the neighborhood as Ward 7 residents, but also they've lived here for generations. They have a business, a landscaping business. This isn't Rick Caruso hires Brandon Martin, comes into town and votes, and then forgets entirely about it and tries to put up something that's they should be embarrassed about, but they live in Santa Monica, so they don't worry about it. This is a family that lives here and is dedicated and would be embarrassed if they don't fulfill their promises. And I think you'll see the sincerity when you listen to them. You can also send us back to the Planning Commission to do a PD overlay. From the very beginning, this project did not oppose getting into specifics and doing the PD. Our conceptual plan, in terms of the architecture, is very detailed, and we're very proud of it. We think we're ready for an approval, and we've been waiting a long time, and each delay continues to cost the project more and more money, but we've never resisted making commitments. I'm just a lawyer, but we have a full team of experts here to answer any of your questions. The worst thing for me is after you vote, if you don't vote the way I think you should, I have to sit down with my clients and I have to give them guidance about what the best next steps are. And I need to know tonight whether this council is just anti-growth or opposed to limited commercial in this area or not. It's one thing to say, well, we like this landscaping and we want it a little over here. Well, then certainly tell us that. We want to know. But we also want to know whether we should continue, this is a local group, whether we should continue to invest heavily in a project because we think we're aligned with the city's interests and we want your feedback in regards to that. We have on Zoom, thanks to staff, by the way, for accommodating us and setting up the Zoom call. Ken McKentley, he's the architect. We also have two real estate agents, including Scott Underhill from ASU Commercial, in case you have any concerns about the commercial or marketplace or economics of the project. And of course, our next speaker will be Freddie Porter, who is the civil engineer and is actually officially the agent for this project. I urge a vote for approval, and I would like to also ask the mayor if we could reserve some additional time to rebut anything that is said about our project to preserve and protect the record.
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you.
How many, we have just about 3.5 minutes left. How many others would like to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? Okay, so we have one other person, Mr. Porter, and another one, and we have a total of 3 minutes and 15 seconds left for this with two speakers. Please introduce yourself and go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Freddie Porter with Porter & Associates Engineering. I've got a few things to pass out here. Colored document, there's just one. I just wanted to leave that for the record. And then there's several pages here with some of the,
While he's setting that up, Mr. Martin, there's a 5-minute rebuttal period after this.
how do I get this going on the screen?
Staff, would somebody help him, please?
Well, I'll keep talking without that while we're waiting. Oh, there it is. So this is an architectural site plan here with that I think the architect may be able to zoom in and talk a little bit more about that, but there's several renderings. We just want to make sure you guys had these. I think they were emailed over to planning staff, but there's several elevations of the buildings and just kind of showing that this is a nice looking project. It's a great development. Meets all the latest and greatest standards that the city has, and that's what we're moving forward with that we'd like to get approved tonight. This one here is similar to what was already shown today, but it's kind of a colored map showing the proximity of our project to surrounding commercial uses. And as you can see, There's really not much of anything within a half-a-mile radius. There's a little portion of C1 to the north of us on Weibel, and of course, catty-corner to us, we have some C2. We're looking for C1, a neighborhood commercial. There's nothing to the west of us on this map. You know, we're in a neighborhood commercial deficit here in this area, and that's why we've got neighborhood commercial proposed. We need it. It's a necessity. It's policy in the general plan. So as the staff report concluded, the project is consistent with the general plan's land use policies and the surrounding land uses. It's an infill project on an arterial. It's, you know, as you can see on that map, there's really not any other C1 nearby. That other C1 that's there, that's a little close on the north end, it's undeveloped. There's no developed C1 in the area. Neighborhood commercial is extremely compatible with residential neighborhoods. That's why it's called neighborhood commercial. 16 policies and goals are listed in the staff report from the general plan that we're showing compatibility with. A variety of commercial uses, setting aside land for commercial uses, no less than 5 acres. We have a 10-acre project. The length and depth, the unique shape of the property, clustering of adjacent commercial. We got catty corner C2, an infill of commercial land uses. This is an infill project. Encourage compatible developments with colors, materials. We've got the pretty colored renderings here that show that compatibility. Walls and landscaping provide screening that and they're even more enhanced now with our new city standards that were adopted recently with more walkable commercial areas. Access is directed away from residential, street frontages are landscaped and walkable, new projects in urban areas, orderly development, infill vacant areas. Our parcel's oddly configured. It's not conducive to single-family development.
You have about 40 seconds left.
Another one up there. So we prepared a little single-family layout, tried to get the 6,000 square foot lots that would be compatible with an R1 zoning, and we've yielded about 37 lots. That's about 3.5 dwelling units an acre. That's we usually get about 4.5 for 6,000 square foot lots. That's much less than we would normally get. It shows that it's not really feasible for single-family development. I'm gonna go ahead and let somebody else hop up here and.
Thank you. We have 10 seconds left. So our final speaker, would you like to address this for 10 seconds? 10 seconds. Sir, we need you to come up here and introduce yourself, please, after, thank you, Ms. Nahara.
My name is Mike Henson. I'm requesting 3 minutes to talk, extension, since this is my property and it's my family. Maybe it's a little more in depth on the situation.
Motion approved, Mayor.
We have a motion requested by the Vice Mayor. We're going to need to vote on this for a 3-minute extension. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Parlier?
Aye.
Councilmember Rivera? Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Weir?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Aye.
And Councilmember Sullivan?
Yes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Thank you. Please introduce yourself and go ahead.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Mike Henson, and I am part of the family that owns the property there on Hosking. I was born and raised in Bakersfield, attended West High, and graduated from there, as well as Montana State Billings. I've lived in the Stone Creek community for over seven years, probably 12 years, considering that at one time I had a house on the Hosking side, which the city took as eminent domain for the interchange. I also had my shop out there, which the city kicked me out as the city came around. So now I'm stuck with what I have here, and I'm trying to make the best of it. I've hired the best people, brought the best products in, trying to do everything we can. I met with the local group, RAG, several times to try to accommodate their needs. They insist houses or nothing, their way or the highway. They just did the meetings basically to appease the planning commissions and so on. So we had no progress there, even though we would acquiesce to anything that we need to. I pass that every day, 4, 5, 6 times going to the freeway. There's nothing on Hosking all the way down, nothing on Hosking this way. No local services for any residents, none whatsoever for kids to walk to, get something after school, before school, nothing for parents to do with their kids. We live in a young, active community. These people are on the go. They need convenience. They want to hit that freeway, get to work, get their kids to school or practice, whatever it may be. They don't want to hit Taft Highway. We all know Taft Highway is worse than 405 at 4 to 8 in the morning and at 3 to 6 at night. It's 2 lanes, it's dangerous. Panama, constantly crowded, construction. So that's where these people have to go to get anything. One thing, it's dangerous for the kids. Who wants to send their kids on bicycles over to Taft Highway, Panama? We need something for children to walk to access, and that's what the community needs. Something that's there, local, where they can meet their friends, have a bite to eat. Family comes to town, hey, let's walk over here. Meet us over here at this new local restaurant. Hey, there's a great bakery here. We don't have any of that, nothing. So it's just a dead zone there. And then it's the gateway to the Kaiser Park, as you see. Everyone is going to come that way. People are going to want to stop there, get a soda, get some gas, get some refreshments for their kids. Half the city of Bakersfield uses that park. It's the biggest park we have. We have, what, a 10 by 10 sign right there in Hosking with a $1 billion interchange. And they get off and they're going to see a dirt lot there for 10 years now. If we don't do nothing, 15. And that's what they're going to drive by and be greeted with from us. They deserve better. I live there. I got to drive by it. I want to put something there for the people that I have to deal with and see every day too. So I just hope you support us because we did everything you asked and even more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henson. Now, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of staff's recommendation? That is, anyone who does not want to change the land use from residential to commercial development, which may include a gas station. May I just see a show of hands, please? Just hold them up so I have an idea. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it looks like 5 of you. We have 15 minutes, so if you can kind of pace yourself with the first speaker, please make your way up. Please introduce yourself and go ahead.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Go. My name is Joe Jimenez. I am president of the Weibel Road Action Group. I will refer to it as RAG. We represent the 450 residents that signed the petition. They all wanted to attend this meeting, but due to the COVID-19 and limited seating, we advised them not to attend. RAG was created back in 2004. RAG was created to preserve, protect, and serve the residential neighborhoods, along with maintaining the integrity of our community. We are advocates for the 9 surrounding neighborhoods that compose the boundaries of Panama Lane to McKee Road, the 99 freeway to Acres Road. The citizens that live in this area are hardworking, law-abiding citizens. They want safe streets, safe schools, common sense, compatible property development in our neighborhoods. RAG has participated in many community projects to better our community. RAG is in agreement with the recent decision that the Planning Commission to oppose this project. Let me repeat that. The recent decision of the Planning Commission to oppose this project. So we stand here today due to an appeal which has been made to the City Council. And that's what it is. It's an appeal to change the zoning once again. We continue to respectfully oppose the zoning change. RAG has gone door to door throughout our community, letting people know about the proposed zoning change. We, along with volunteers, have gathered over 450 signatures on petitions. Mailers have been sent out to all the 9 neighborhoods that surround the proposed project. 98% of all the homeowners we spoke to are against this project. The citizens in this area have invested money, time, in an effort to maintain a certain lifestyle. The current Hughes Lane project, which is a quarter mile from the proposed project site, has been recently passed. The planning of a gas station, a 3-story motel, fast food restaurants will be at this location. By changing the zoning from the residential to commercial makes no sense at all. This is already an established community. You have many established businesses to the north of Panama and the south, which is Taft Highway. By changing the zoning, you will disrupt the lifestyle of thousands of families. Your decision today will impact an entire community forever. If you decide to change the zoning from residential to commercial, we believe it will bring the following. Traffic will increase, and the noise will increase dramatically. Air quality will increase. Children's safety at risk, crossing the streets on Weibel Road in Hosking, car stereos blasting, car alarms going off, 24-hour lighting, alleyways, deliveries, etc. Not to mention the problems that come with a gas station, convenience store, and all the problems that comes with homelessness. In closing, I ask you to please respect the opinion of the people. The people have spoken. They do not want this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. Next speaker, please.
Just a moment.
If I could get this to be used, please. Thank you.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Go and members of City Council. My name is David Polinsky, and I am the Vice President and Treasurer of the Weibel Road Action Group. On behalf of the 450-plus citizens who are opposed to this general plan amendment, we respectfully request your support for upholding the Planning Commission's recommendation to deny this request and for supporting the staff's recommendation for denying the property owner's appeal. The Planning Commission got it right. As noted earlier, the Planning Commission recommended denial because the project is premature for the location, because the nearby existing commercially designated property. The need for commercial development with a gas station is being met with the development of these services at Hosking and Hughes Lane, which is this area over here, which is a quarter-mile away. The shift towards internet commerce threatens the vitality of brick and mortar stores, and that additional commercial land is unnecessary and could accelerate the potential for urban blight. In the Planning Commission resolutions for this request, 122-19 and 123-19, the following findings for denying the requests that were given are: the project does not promote compatibility or complement existing land uses. The project does not promote continuity with surrounding single-family residential neighborhoods, and the project is incompatible with the principles and policies of the Metropolitan Bakersfield General Plan. And the fourth reason, public necessity, general welfare, and good planning practices do not justify the project. These are the findings of the Planning Commission members appointed by the City Council members, whose role is to evaluate and make recommendations for these types of requests based on the information they had at that time. We agree with these findings, and especially that the project is incompatible with the principles and policies and inconsistent with the general plan. For example, we believe that the project isn't compatible with commercial policies 21, half-mile separation, and 24, clustering commercial development rather than extending along roads. If we look here at this drawing, we've seen numerous pictures brought up today of and saying stuff isn't within a half mile. As this drawing shows here, there is within less than a half a mile commercial property here. This project over here where gas stations, fast food restaurants, hotels, and other stuff are going in. And of course is the existing C2 property here to the south of Hosking Road.
And again, one of the recommendations that came out of, or the reasons why, is that the needs of the service station and convenience stores being met merely a quarter mile away. I would also like to note that back in 2003, 2004, a similar zone change was proposed for property at the same intersection. City staff recommended to deny, and both the Planning Commission and the City Council voted to deny that request. I'm presenting this information because that request was denied in part because it was inconsistent with policies 21 and 24, which is documented in the City Council Resolution 034-04. Logically, rezoning property from residential to commercial less than 100 feet to the east would also be inconsistent with these policies. We have consistently asked planning staff what has changed between 2003 and now. Former Planning Director Kevin Coyle's answer to that question via email was, the policies are dated 2002 and they are recommendations, not requirements, use of the word encourage. This is the only answer that has been provided, and we don't believe this answers the question. The current general plan is what is approved by the City Council and states that it was updated in 2016. The fact is, with regards to these two policies, nothing has changed, and therefore we believe that the consistent application of the plan's policies, goals, the spirit and intent is necessary to preserve the community's trust and integrity of the general plan. We believe this is a messy deal. There's 4 different owners, and as far as we've been told, there is no legal agreement on how they will develop this property together. It's an oddly shaped piece of property. And by the way, there are 4 existing occupied homes in this property. Please hear our 450 voices opposing this project and help us preserve and protect our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moholinski. We have about 5 minutes left and 3 speakers, so would the next speaker please come forward? And if you have an empty seat anywhere near you, would you just raise your hand so we can get some people seated in the back? Sorry. We have some seats here. Staff, would you please help our guests find a seat?
Okey doke.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Go and members of the City Council. My name is Dave Morrison. I'm one of the founding members of the Wyber Road Action Group and immediate past president. RAG was started with one important reason and the continuation of a peaceful, quiet, single-family residential neighborhood. The most important task for RAG is the continuation of its original plan, taking action when something is proposed that will interrupt our quiet neighborhood. When a request came to change the residential zone area to commercial for the development of storefronts, gas stations, convenience stores, we must step up. Our job is to involve the local residents in forming the proposal and get their input. The most effective way to do this is to go door to door and talk to them face to face and get their impressions. We would introduce ourselves, explain the reason we were there, and hand them a flyer explaining in more detail what would happen if the zoning change was allowed. We had residents accept the flyer, go inside, and after reading it, come out and chase us down several doors down and then sign the petition opposing the change. As you know, we have over 450 people against this project, plus you got the right end today. Now, homeless is a problem. The gentleman said it's not. But both the county supervisors and the city council have spent a lot of time and resources addressing this major problem. It's the common knowledge that commercial establishments attract the homeless population. The homeless population is one of the several major concerns of the surrounding neighborhoods. We have dozens of school children passing the property every weekday. There's a school bus stop just to the south of it. Do we want our children exposed to this environment every day? In addition to this, the people who have invested in living in the adjoining neighborhoods will be exposed to noise, litter, delivery trucks, gasoline trucks throughout the day, and sleep-depriving overhead lighting and noise from 24-hour operation. On November 6th, we had a meeting with Ms. Hanson and Fred Porter in Mr. Porter's office. My first question to her, were you familiar with RAG? She was not. And my second question, do you know why we were here? And again, she was not. And we explained we represented the people residing in this area, and we were expressing our neighbors' strong feelings against any commercial development or apartments on this property. We work for our neighbors. After some discussion, it appeared Mr. Porter sensed that the people of surrounding neighborhoods were against commercial development and came up with a very good, refreshing idea. He came up with the idea of a single-family dwelling housing project to be built on this property with a builder could consider an access point through the cul-de-sac on Balanced Rock. And we thought that's very good, and the city has an easement that would allow that to happen when they worked on that property before. And it's also evident that homes in close proximity to a commercial development do see a negative impact on their property value. Home ownership is one of the most important, if not the most important means available to homeowners' families to accumulation of wealth. Homeowners seek to protect their investments. The quality of their lives is directly related to their home. Decisions that positively or negatively affect the residential value should be taken seriously. And we thank the Planning Commission for recommending denial of the zone change and ask the City Council to deny the appeal to change the Planning Commission's Resolution 12219 and 12319. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Next speaker, please.
Good evening.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself. We have about
My name is Samuel Jones, and I live in Granite Point. My home is at one of the easements, which is Balanced Rock Lane. There are actually 3 of them. The other 2 are Willow Basin and Grandview. That partition between the property that they're proposing to build a commercial project on directly impacts me. I look at the noise, I look at all the different kinds of things that would happen with my home being directly parallel to that wall. I came here 5 years ago from Los Angeles, from the city of Compton. I worked there 15 years as an administrator. I was looking for a community that was quiet, that was family-oriented, that was culturally diverse and inviting, as well as being quiet. I came out of the educational administration. I loved this community in Bakersfield. What I've heard being proposed gives me pause to be disturbed. I wanted to come to a community that was totally different from Los Angeles, totally different from Compton. I commuted almost 10 years looking for a community that I could reside in, to bring my family here. My wife was born and raised here. For what they're proposing now, I don't need a next-door donut shop. I don't need a 24-hour gas station. I had all of that in LA. I'm looking for a community that stays and remains residential. Those 3 easements, I'm completely okay with. It's fine as long as it remains residential. There's enough other property close by that is already commercial. I don't look to walk to the gas station or a donut shop or any of those kind of items. Thank you. I'd also like to request an additional 3 minutes, if that's possible.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Do we have a motion? Vice Mayor?
In a sense of fairness, motion to approve 3 minutes on this side, too.
You have a motion. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor?
Aye.
Councilmember Rivera? Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Weir?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Aye.
And Councilmember Sullivan?
Yes.
Motion is unanimous. Motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please reset the clock? 3:28. And I believe there's one more person after you, Mr. Jones.
Yes. I'm not looking to step out of my house and see a huge building blocking the view that I believe is extremely beautiful. I'm not saying that nothing can come there. I'm sure there will be. But I was looking for something residential when I traveled 125 miles. I spent the last 10 years commuting back and forth, 250 miles a day, 5 days a week, not just to have someone throw up a building, a 24-hour anything in front of my property. It's unfair. If it's residential, sure, I'll love my neighbors like I do now. I've learned to get along with my neighbors. I wanted to move to a multicultural neighborhood. I don't need a store in my backyard. I don't need to see the back of a building, 24-hour lights. I don't need to see any of that. I've already experienced that in Compton. I experienced that in LA. This was my opportunity to retire 5 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Next speaker, please. So one more request for speaker. Welcome. Please introduce yourself and go ahead.
First, I'd like to thank the City Council and the Mayor for your time and attention to this matter. My name is Brett Vigil, and I live in the area which would be immediately and negatively affected by a zoning change on this property. Initially, I had no desire to speak in front of you, but after everything that has recently happened in my neighborhood, I felt compelled to address you tonight. I am, of course, referring to the tragic murder of a 13-year-old girl, which has garnered statewide attention. While it's unfortunate that it takes something so horrific to bring our community together, I am grateful for the nightly vigils. I fully support and even participate in these celebrations of her life. That said, when I go to bed at 8:30 o'clock at night, because I work so early in the morning, it goes without saying that the congregations and commotions continue well into the night. I tolerate the motorcades, the heavy foot traffic, the garbage, and even the loud music which rattles my house while I'm trying to sleep, because I know it's both temporary and for a good cause. A zoning change at Hoskins and Weibel would be a permanent change, and in my estimation would not be for a good cause. If the recent events in our neighborhood held in Patricia Alatorre's honor are any indication of what we might expect to come with commercial development, I am vehemently opposing to this zoning change proposition tonight. Thank you, and if you have no questions, I yield the remainder of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Vigil. We have about 40 seconds left. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
My name is Joe Jimenez. Let's see. We met with the Hensons. We had a really good meeting with them, and we tried to maybe think of something that we could both work, both parties, but we just couldn't come to an agreement. And when the attorney says that it's a necessity, this is not a necessity, believe me. You've got so much commercial going on in our neighborhoods. You're destroying the neighborhoods with all this commercial property. There's nothing wrong with getting in your car and go to Panama Lane or Taft Highway or Ash where they're building the new commercial. So I want to thank you, and your decision is going to be really big for a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. So at this time, I will ask those who spoke first if they wish to rebut, and there's an opportunity for 5 minutes. See Mr. Martin coming down. Let's clean off that area for you first. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council. I want to run through this very quickly because I want to give our architect a chance to actually weigh in as well. I think part of the wonder of this project is the architectural progress we've made. I just note that everything we've heard from RAG hasn't been updated since the Planning Commission. There's no new argument, and it doesn't address any of our progress. Many of the things that we've done have addressed their concerns, and it's just silence on anything that we added. I think what you are seeing as a result of that, and conclude, is this is anti-development and anti-mixed use. I grew up in Hagan Oaks, which is in Ward 5. At that time, when I was young and in high school, everybody was against the marketplace. I mean, it seemed that way at least. There was a community group. They thought all of these same things were going to happen, where there was going to be massive amounts of crime. It was going to be, you know, the lights were going to blare. Nobody was going to be able to sleep. There was too much noise. But you know, I got a job at Edwards Cinema as my first job out of high school. And one of the first people I served at the concession stand was named Jill. And Jill was the leader of the opposition group to the marketplace. Today, I put on an event at Cal State Bakersfield with various stakeholders in the community, and people came up and talked about how much they love that development. We think we can do the same thing. I think there's fear here, but it's not necessarily grounded in reality. Number one, 450 people all are against this project. I call less than truth on that. There was a form, it's a stock form, they got signatures. Reality is that those people didn't know what our project was, so how could they be against it? 98% are against this project. Again, if you do data analysis, that's not very likely to be true. And what we found was when we did signature gathering, there was tremendous support. We did a mailer. We've got lots of phone calls from people in the community who are supportive. David Polinsky says that there's another gas station that serves it somewhere. That's fine. It's not as if a ward needs a single gas station. We offer other benefits as well, which we've outlined. We are compatible with the general plan. The project that was talked about from 2003 wasn't even on our property. It's a non sequitur. That's an old request as well. 2003, your goals as a council have changed. The general plan is maybe interpreted differently, but the reality is that you can't take one project and compare it to another, particularly when conditions in the ward have changed. In terms of the homeless population, that argument, I just want to say in terms of public safety, that we did have a girl who went missing on the corner of the property. And that's sad and that's tragic. But it didn't happen with a neighborhood commercial center there. It happened with an unimproved lot. The status quo, which RAG wants to continue, they reject our safety measures, and the crime that was committed would be committed. We have protection measures to protect against it, and I think that needs to be respected. I'd like to go ahead and, with respect to Sam Jones, I thought he made excellent points about wanting to keep the character of the community. I think the fears in terms of traffic are largely unfounded. We have a park-like barrier that runs as a buffer between the commercial activity and the existing residential. I think that many of the things like view shed blockage you're going to see with residential there. Fred Porter did an excellent job in saying, hey, look, this isn't a question for the city council in regards to whether we have residential or whether we have a neighborhood commercial, because residential doesn't pencil out. We simply can't afford to do it, and it would be a very bad project if we did. So let me go ahead and ask the architect if he can weigh in, and the remainder of the time would go to Donna Nelson, who arrived from AYSO. She's a supporter of the project and can talk about how it can complement the city's KP Soccer Park project.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. We have 1 minute and 15 seconds for the next speaker. You just stop the clock and reset that while we clean, please. 1:15, please. Oh, you can't. Okay, well, we'll just, yeah. Okay. The next speaker who is rebutting, do you have a person that you?
If nobody's here, I'm from the actual neighborhood. I'd like to speak if I can.
Okay. Mayor, I apologize. I want clarification. Do we have our architect on Zoom? Is he available?
Oh. What's his name?
Ken?
Last name?
I think it's McCurry, McKentley, I'm sorry.
He is on the line. I'm not sure if he's unable to unmute but we can't hear him.
Okay. Donna? And then let's go ahead and, if you can make your comments brief, thank you.
So we have 1 minute and 15 seconds left. We were unable to reset that.
Okay, my name is Donna Nelson. I've lived in Bakersfield for 47 years. I've been involved in several nonprofit groups in town, but one of the other things that I'm involved in very heavily is American Youth Soccer Organization. I happen to be on their national board of directors right now for the last 6.5 years. We bring tournaments to Bakersfield, and since the sports village has been further developed, they now have a coliseum, I guess we'll call it. I've been looking for, we bring in about 10,000 kids about 3 times a year and their families to tournaments right now, most of the time out at the Kern County Soccer Park, but I worked with other people in Diane Hoover when we were first coming here. One of the things I do on the National Board of Directors is I look for national tournaments. These national tournaments bring in $8 million to the cities at a very minimum. They've been in Hawaii, they've been in Lancaster. 10 seconds? I'm in support of this, but we need places for people to go, we need facilities, and we're looking for friendly cities like this to do that in.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson.
Thank you.
And now I'll ask those who spoke second if they wish to rebut. So may I just see a show of hands of those who would wish to rebut? We have 5 minutes. And it looks like we have 2 speakers.
First off, the name of the junior high school that Brandon Martin mentioned incorrectly twice is Stone Creek Junior High. It's not Stony Brook or McKinley or whatever the other names. We live in this neighborhood. I'm not sure I understand the point why we would need to update our arguments as we've gone from the Planning Commission to the City Council. Our position has remained, we are opposed to commercial development. We don't see any reason to change our arguments. The team that's been assembled for the property owners, I think it was in March when the architect produced the documents. We saw a copy of those. They were dated March 25th. They continue to work towards gaining this approval. Our position has remained the same, so I don't see the need to have to change our arguments. I take exception to Mr. Martin's statement that the 450 plus people who either signed the petition or made the effort to fill out a postcard with their name and address and put that in the mailbox and send it. 168 people did that. I don't get the point like this was willy-nilly or it's a bunch of baloney or whatever. As far as the support for AYSO, I think it's great at the Kaiser Permanente Park. There is a piece of commercial property adjacent to the park itself that I think the city may own. I'm not 100% sure. And then I think catty corner from there, and this is Ash and Taft Highway, there's another property that some time ago they went through and did a zone change from residential to commercial there. So there's plenty of commercial property around the park itself. So I don't know what's, where we're at, which is a couple, 2-3 miles away, whether that would have any impact on the AYSO operations and need for commercial development. There's some that's strict, it's already right there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you. Dave Morrison again. About 2 weeks ago, we got contacted by ASU, the developers here in Bakersfield, to have a meeting with them, and 3 of us got together with them. And they brought to our attention the elevation that you saw on the computer today that was designed by one of the top architects supposedly in California and so forth. But what we have here, we have the Porter's engineering involved, we have ASU involved, we have, as far as we know, 4 people who have their names on that corner lot. that there's no coordination or cooperation that we know of between the four people of which direction they would go if this was reversed today. So if it was reversed, you could have the Hinsons have, let's say, 2/3 of it, then a third would be divided up between three people. What would they do with the property? So I agree with David. Our contention is the same. It's a residential, quiet residential neighborhood, and we want to keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Thank you. Is there anybody else? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing at this time and return it to council for comment and action. Vice Mayor, this is your area. Would you like to speak first?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Yeah, I've been on the council for several years now, and I can think of 2 or 3 decisions that have come before me and that have been extremely, extremely difficult, and this is one of them. One hand, you have a wonderful family. It's a property that's been in the family for generations. And they're looking to have a legacy for that property and their family. When they initially brought the plan to the Planning Commission, there was some hiccups in it. They've tried in due diligence to correct those moving forward. In the end, it looks like it could be a good facility. On the other hand, you have residents around there, adjacent on either side, that were promised Y, and now it's going to be changed to Z. They bring up arguments that are reasonable, especially the residents to the east. Now you're up against the Planning Commission. It was a split vote, I admit that, but it was still a vote, and the vote was for denial. Staff, through the Development Services Department, has reviewed this, and the staff recommendation is to deny too. It's not fun, it's not easy. I want to support this family, but I am supporting staff recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Are there any other colleagues who wish to comment on this? Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you. Yes, it could be worse. It could be my ward. So these decisions and these issues are difficult. And it's interesting to me. It helps me to realize how long I've been sitting here. I saw the name Porter and Associates. Looking forward to seeing Fred Porter, whom I've known for a long time. His son, welcome to the family. So that's interesting. And Mr. Martin now is the son, Brandon Martin. Excellent presentation, Brandon. Yes, actually, I met early months ago and heard about this program. And I'm glad that the marketplace was brought up. It was on this council just right after I was elected back in I believe it was the fall of '95, or maybe it was '96. So that was a long time ago. And the people that lived right across the street, in that very, very nice neighborhood right across the street, they didn't want commercial. They didn't want commercial right across the street from them, from their nice neighborhood. And so there were just very strong, passionate opinions. And there was also an action committee. No commercial. And it ended up being, and that was a very difficult decision. And it ended up being our wonderful marketplace, that when someone comes into town, that's where we take them. You know, it's one of our greatest, very, very nicest amenities. I'm sorry, but I think it's a wonderful location. Talking about, well, of course, one comment, walkable commercial. You know, walkable, bicycles, all of those mentioned 450 residents. I'm not sure if that's residents or if that's homes. What actually is the answer there? Homes, okay, that's what I thought. Probably homes. And my guess is very soon after these businesses open, those 450 homes are going to start enjoying that project. It was mentioned donuts, ice cream. You know, it's a neighborhood low-impact development project. And a gas station, gosh, that's pretty handy. That's pretty convenient. These are difficult issues and some very passionate opinions from the residents that are here tonight. But my guess is that very soon you're going to find some important, very, very important uses for you and your family in this shopping center. They're wonderful. You know, it's not a large, there are a lot of homes around there, and having a variety of small businesses or large businesses. I mean, they're not going to be large businesses. And is there protection that the uses would need to be approved? Wasn't that mentioned? And maybe not. I don't know. But I think it's an ideal location. I think that those families back there in those homes, for the most part, they would very soon be delighted that was there. Use it, enjoy it. Many would walk there. Many would ride their bicycles there. So. You know, and it was mentioned, the homes, it's not the principles or the policies that they like. That's confusing to me. What does that mean? You know, there will be a variety of businesses. So anyway, I just remember so well any time commercial is mentioned, it is portrayed as being very negative. But
Councilmember
in
Sullivan.
reality, it's...
Would you just hold for 1 minute?
Sure.
One of our council members had to step out for a minute, and during a hearing, we want to make sure everybody gets heard.
Happy
So
to.
just hold your thought just for a minute, and we'll just wait until he returns.
Mid-sentence, but I'll
Yes, I'm
hold...
sorry.
No, that's fine, thank you.
I just made eye contact with our city attorney. Councilmember Sullivan, please go ahead.
Continue. Okay. Well, I personally, I know I was in the real estate business for years, and going door to door, something can be portrayed as being negative, and people agree that it's very negative. It can be portrayed as being something wonderful. People agree that it's wonderful. And something like this, my guess is that very soon those families would really appreciate it being there and really enjoy it being there. So I love supporting my colleague here, but I personally think that it will end up being a wonderful project, and so I'm going to be supporting the project.
Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan. Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize for stepping out for just a minute. I just want to make a comment. It's disappointing to me when I hear from community members. I understand the concern, but it's disappointing when I hear the issue of homelessness brought up as a reason to not support a development project. Homelessness is an issue that our community faces as a whole, and we have to address it. And by denying a project, we are not reducing homelessness, we are not stopping it, we're not solving homelessness. All we're saying is we don't want it here. We hear this often in different forms, and it does disappoint me. And so just wanted to make a note there that for me, that's not a compelling reason enough to deny this project. We need to mitigate for the impact. We need to make this project the best as possible for the surrounding community, but to deny it on the face of homelessness really bothers me. So I'll be supporting the project as well.
Thank you. Colleagues on the phone, does anybody wish to speak? Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I also think that this project makes a lot of sense as a neighborhood commercial. I don't see how it really works otherwise. I know that they would not like apartments in the neighborhood, and I don't see how single family really works on this site. And I know that the developer has worked with the neighborhood and tried to, I like the idea of a PCD and the planning commission getting another look and the neighborhood having input and having, you know, those architectural drawings actually looked at by everybody. So I guess I would make a motion to approve the project, but to approve it as a PCD, and it goes back to Planning Commission.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Is that all that you have?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor. Could staff maybe go through exactly what it is that they're going to put on this piece of property? I heard something about a hotel or a motel. Could somebody tell me exactly what it is that they're planning on putting there?
Mr. Johnson?
Yes, Paul Johnson, Planning Director. On this specific site, we do not have a site plan that we have reviewed, so everything is conceptual to us at this point in time. Councilmember Smith did state the PCD. Again, there was two options. If I could go back real quick. If you added the PCD overlay, changing this to C1 PCD, that would be the Planning Commission that would review it. If you went exclusive PCD, you're adding another 2 months onto the project, some more money that applicant has to spend to come back to you for approval. But the hotel, the gas station is on the project site that is located with the black circle here.
Thank you, Mr.
So
Johnson.
that's away from this project. What is it, half a mile away?
Just over a quarter mile to the east.
Okay. Okay, so we really don't know exactly what they're going to be putting on that property at this point. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, but the PCD, we would have certain controls over what is going to be allowed on that property. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Or is it, that's correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The question would be if you want Planning Commission to have that final say, or if you want your council to have that final say. Again, Planning Commission would have the PCD overlay, and if you want your council to decide what goes on there, that would be the exclusive PCD zone.
No, I think I'm comfortable with the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Weir. Next, Councilmember Freeman, followed by Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. I too support Councilmember Smith's motion I was asked about this project months ago, and that's what I recommended, especially after I talked to a few planning commissioners. Their objection was simply, they didn't know what was going on the property. There wasn't a site plan. Project like this, and especially with different ownership of parcels, we've had some problems in the last year with another major property, a very major problem in the city with one like that. And I think there could be a good project here, but I really think the PCD overlay is proper. It gives the Planning Commission and the public a chance to really scrutinize exactly what's being proposed. And I don't see any reason why a nice project cannot be proposed. With good architecture, good site plan, addressing concerns, lighting, noise, mitigations, all that gets covered by the Planning Commission. So I'm going to be supporting Councilman Smith's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. Councilmember Sullivan.
Well, I was going to ask Mr. Martin how he felt about the overlay. Can you quickly come down, and is that a problem?
Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan. It's no surprise that my clients would prefer to have an approval tonight. At the same time, the concerns that we've heard from all parties and several members of the council make me think that maybe a PD is appropriate and further debate at the Planning Commission, so I can accept that in good faith. The reality is that there's misinformation that I'm hearing, and more talk and discussion helps us get that out. For instance, there's not 4 property owners. The Hansons own the property together, and there's an agreement on development between their family. That was old information that maybe somebody hasn't been updated to. In terms of the PD, I know the city of Bakersfield will work with us in good faith to make this a great project. So normally I would need to consult with my client for a while, but I know that they act in good faith, and we've discussed this in advance.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Yeah.
Councilmember Sullivan, anything else?
Yeah, no, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you. And then Councilmember Smith.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to clarify the motion that, yes, I want the overlay, and I wanted it to go back to Planning Commission, not to come back to us.
Honorable Mayor and council members, just to clarify, the motion is to uphold the appeal and impose a more restrictive C1 PCD overlay zone.
Thank you. And then we have one more request to speak. Councilmember Freeman.
No, I lowered my hand.
Okay, well, I saw a flag. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, sitting up here, just listening to my colleagues, I'm going to vote no on this, but you know, I know it's not an easy one. And I just want to thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So seeing no other requests to speak, you have a motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Oh, which is the motion?
Okay, Madam City Attorney, would you restate it,
Yes.
please?
It's to uphold the appeal and impose a more restrictive C1 PCD overlay zone.
Okay, thanks.
Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Parlier,
No.
Councilmember Rivera, Councilmember Gonzalez,
Aye.
Councilmember Weir,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman,
Aye.
and Councilmember Sullivan.
Yes.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Parlier voting no and Councilmember Rivera absent.
Thank you. Let's take a 7-minute break, and we'll return for our final hearing item. Thank you, everyone who was here for this item, and we appreciate your participation. Thank you to all of you for waiting to the very end. Okay. Madam City Clerk, next item, please.
Public hearing to consider general plan amendment, zone change number 19-0184, appeal.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you again. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members.
Mr. Johnson, if I can interrupt, just
Yes.
One moment. I received a staff memorandum transmitting additional information provided by the applicant. An additional staff memorandum was received transmitting correspondence regarding item 10C.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. This is a change from single-family on property to multifamily. Specifically, though, again, it's an appeal to the Planning Commission action which denied the amendment of the land use designation from LR, low-density residential, to LMR, low-medium-density residential, and also denied the change in zone classification from R1, one-family dwelling, to R2, limited multifamily dwelling. This project is located on the east side of Old River Road between Panama Lane and Harris. It's approximately 17 acres, and the surrounding development to the north and east are single-family homes, vacant to the south and vacant to the west. The designation, again, is LR, and they were proposing LMR. There is some commercial to the south designated or zoned, but that is still, as I mentioned, vacant, and there is single-family to the west, again, vacant. Again, similar to the last, there were questions raised by the public on multifamily within a 2-mile radius of this site. Panama Lane in this picture bisects, and everything to the south that is kind of that yellow-orangish color is multifamily zone property, basically undeveloped. And to the north of Panama Lane, again, you have the multifamily in the color, and most of that is developed with multifamily. The Planning Commission considered this on March 5th. Based on the information available at that time, Planning Department did recommend approval. We had no opposition. Opposition did show up at the meeting, and with that, the Planning Commission acknowledged the need for multifamily residential. However, again, there was no site plan submitted, so the project cannot be considered as a whole. The Planning Commission also noted that there was no engagement with the neighbors, and again, that was because of the opposition. And as the clerk noted, there was a memorandum submitted to your council from the appellant indicating that subsequently they did hold a community meeting, and according to the applicant, it was a favorable meeting. The Planning Commission did not provide or did not see where the project provided the need and benefit for the nearby neighbors. Therefore, on a split vote of 4-3, the request was denied. On March 13th, an appeal was submitted, and the basis for that appeal was the infill project to vacant land, that the multifamily development would provide a buffer between the single family to the north and the commercial zone to the south, and that the state of California also encourages multifamily development. Again, your options tonight are to deny the appeal, which would retain the single family development of the site. You could uphold the appeal, which would then allow development of multifamily, or you could uphold the appeal with a more restrictive zone. In this case, instead of the PCD, the planned commercial development, this is the PUD, the planned unit development. And again, 2 options. You could have the overlay, R2 PUD overlay, or you could do the exclusive PUD. And it's the same with the overlay, it goes to the Planning Commission. With the exclusive PUD, it comes back to your council for approval. Again, as an extension of the Planning Commission, it is staff's recommended motion that you uphold the decision of the Planning Commission and deny the appeal to amend the land use designation and deny the appeal to change the zone district. And as with before, if you need help with crafting the wording for the motion, we can help you with that, and then again, clarify what the yes and no vote means. This completes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to staff's recommendation? That is, anyone who wants to change the land use to allow limited multiple family dwellings. So let me just see a show of hands, how many people wish to speak to this? Just hold them up so I can have an idea. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we have 15 minutes. Welcome.
Thanks,
Nyquist. Go
Good
ahead
evening,
and
Honorable
introduce
Mayor,
yourself.
Council members and staff. My name is Patricia Nyquist. I'm with McIntosh and Associates, here tonight on behalf of the owner-developer Nicholson Combs LLC. We are here to appeal the decision of the Planning Commission on March 5th, 2020, regarding their recommendation to deny the request for general plan amendment from LR, low residential, 7.26 dwelling units an acre, to LMR, low medium residential, which is 10 dwelling units an acre, and zone change from R1, one family dwelling, to R2, limited multiple family dwelling zone. Staff analyzed and determined the project is consistent with policies of the general plan and recommended approval to the Planning Commission. Though the proposed LMR R2 provides an adequate buffer between the commercial site to the south and the existing single-family residential development to the north, Planning Commission voted 4-3 to recommend denial to the City Council. The denial was based on comments received by the neighbors. At the hearing, we learned that the neighbors had the following concerns. There are other sites within 2-mile radius zoned for development, increased traffic, and impacted schools. These items were addressed at Planning Commission, and we offer the following responses again for clarification. Concern number 1, there are other sites within a 2-mile radius zoned for development. Our response, the need for higher density homes exists, and this project represents opportunity to meet that demand. Our initial research showed vacancy rates for duplexes at Mirasol Gardens on Journo Drive in the vicinity were at 3% or less. Journo is located on the south side of Panama Lane, west of Stein Road. We also contacted the office of Old River Place back in March and again on June 15th. This duplex development is located on the west side of Old River Road and consists of 250 duplex units, and there is 0 vacancy. On Monday, the Bakersfield Californian published an article stating that Bakersfield rentals are effectively full. The new survey of local rental units found the city's vacancy rate dipped to below 1.5%. Concern number 2, increased traffic. Our response, LMR multifamily generates less traffic volumes compared to LR single family. A traffic study exemption letter was prepared by a registered civil engineer experienced in traffic studies and approved by the city traffic engineer. The Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, 10th edition, determines the PM peak, AM peak, and daily traffic volumes. All reflect a net decrease of 30 PM peak, 13 AM peak, and average daily traffic reduction of 21 respectively. We also took into account the neighbors' concern that traffic flow would increase through their neighborhoods. In order to reduce additional traffic flow to the surrounding neighborhoods, we have enhanced design by incorporating 2 entrances in our conceptual layout. This will maintain incoming and outgoing traffic flow within the site. This also allows for garbage and city services, emergency access, and pedestrian connectivity to the commercial center. This concept plan was developed taking into account the comments made at the Planning Commission by the neighbors and the commissioners and used in our neighborhood meeting. We understand the Planning Commission is now requesting site plans with these types of applications. Concern number 3, impacted schools. Our response, school impact fees are collected for the funding and development of new school facilities. This proposed multifamily development will provide more funds than a single-family development. Following is a comparison of the state impact fees of a duplex development versus a single-family development. We have 58 duplex lots and duplex buildings, averaging 2,400 square feet a lot. That's 139,200 square feet times $4.79 per square foot, which is the current rate. That equals $666,768 in impact fees to be used for the development of future schools. compared to 58 single-family units, averaging 2,000 square feet a lot. That's 116,000 square feet times $4.79, which equates to $555,640 in impact fees. The result is a $111,128 increase in state mandated school fees with the proposed multifamily development. In addition to the benefits of increased school impact fees, we compared the number of students generated with single-family development against the number of students generated with multifamily development. Per the Buena Vista Union School District 2019 School Facilities Needs Analysis, dated March 6, 2019, we pulled two tables. Table 1 shows the student generation rate for single family at 0.4933 versus the student generation rate for multifamily, which is 0.1272. When we compare 58 single-family units, we get 28.61 students generated. With 116 multifamily units, we have 14.75 students generated. That's 14 less students generated with multifamily. The data ensures that the proposed project will generate more fees to fund new schools, and the number of students generated per unit are less with multifamily versus single-family development. In response to Planning Commission's recommendation, we reached out to over 80 neighbors and invited them to attend a virtual neighborhood meeting on June 18th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. We received only 11 responses from those interested in attending, and the meeting was attended by 8 neighbors. We shared the developer's conceptual vision for the project. We shared a revised lot layout reflecting 2 access points to Old River Road, which would reduce traffic flow to adjacent neighborhoods. We addressed comments raised at Planning Commission concerning 1, need for multifamily development, 2, traffic, and 3, impact fees and student generation rates, and we shared photos of the conceptual duplex project. We are happy to report that the meeting concluded with most in attendance voicing support of the project. As a result of the meeting, the developer is committed to provide the following: 2 dedicated access points on Old River Road, single-story, high-quality duplexes as shown, a 6-foot concrete block wall separating the duplex project from existing single-family homes along Empire State Drive, and maintenance of the project, including landscape by ownership. We received 3 signed letters in support of the project from those who voiced opposition at Planning Commission. These letters, as well as the items presented at the neighborhood meeting, are included in the package presented to your council tonight. In summary, in 2018-2019, several meetings took place with Mr. and Mrs. Combs, Roger McIntosh, Jackie Kitchen, former planning director, and staff. Our clients discussed their idea to change the land use to multifamily. This idea was welcomed by staff as multifamily development is encouraged by the state, and it was conveyed to our clients that planning staff would support the application for GPA zone change. In fact, they were encouraged by staff to go with the higher density HMR apartments. Our clients put a lot of thought into keeping with the character of the neighborhood and decided to move ahead with the LMR R2. The proposed low-medium density residential project is an infill project that satisfies the need for such housing and will act as a buffer between the existing commercial development and existing single-family development. The state of California encourages cities to incorporate multifamily development with the higher allowed density. Please refer to the building permit summaries included in the appeal letter for 2015 through 2019, which reflect that only 94 duplex units have been constructed within the city of Bakersfield over the past 5 years. Vacancy rates are at an all-time low of under 1.5% citywide. Based on the state's encouragement for multifamily, the developer feels he is meeting that need while also being sensitive to the surrounding neighborhoods, neighbors, and commercial development. We have made known both the benefit of this duplex development and the citywide need for rental units, and ask for your support in upholding the appeal and approving the GPA zone change. Thank you all for your consideration. This concludes my presentation. I'd like to introduce the developer, Nicholson Combs, to offer their comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Newquist. Welcome. Please introduce yourself and go ahead and raise the mic.
I'm David Combs. I'm a partner with Daryl Nicholson in the ownership of this property. And I'd like to address the council members, Madam Mayor, and the staff. Tricia went over much of the reasons why we're asking for your support. But I just wanted to add a little bit of color. Daryl Nicholson and I own the shopping center site to the south. And we're currently nearing approval of improvement plans for the offsites, where we're going to be improving Panama Lane and Old River Road along the intersection, curbs, gutters, spending approximately $2 million. And so I wanted to the reason that's important is that we're vested in this area and we're vested in the city. We also own the self-storage site on that same 38-acre parcel, and I think it reflects a pride of ownership in what we intend to do with this proposed project of single-family duplexes. We've owned the property for nearly 10 years and have operated the self-storage for 5 years, and so we're not interested in developing and selling, and we are vested in the community. We own 3 different proposed parcels right there in that same area. The Planning Commission encouraged us to talk to the neighbors, and we've done that. We listened, and we redesigned the project in the ways that Tricia talked about, with more access points, and committed to making sure that there's only single story next to the neighbor's hood to the north. That was a big concern. They didn't want 2-story units overlooking their project, and we committed to do that. We also have committed to having professional landscaping for the units so that we have a uniform, consistent look with the project. And if you look at the pictures of the project we're building, this is not your typical entry-level apartment house. We're talking about stucco walls, tile roofs, single story. We think it makes a nice transition from the shopping center that we're going to do to the south and the single family to the north. Currently, the zoning is for single family, and if we were to build homes there, which we're entitled to do right now, those homes, some of those homes would abut against a commercial center. And we think this use is a better transition between the commercial and the single family, especially if it's single story and of high quality. The last thing I'd like to point out to you, Tricia mentioned it, but I think it's very, very important. On July 14th in the Bakersfield, California, I'm sure some of you saw an article about the rental community in this town. There's simply no supply. And so it's very important that in the housing element of any community that there are all types of housing that are affordable to all people. And we're showing currently with this study 1.5% or less vacancy for multifamily in the city of Bakersfield. So for all those reasons, we're here to ask for your support tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Combs. And our final speaker, we have about 43 seconds left. Would you like to?
I'll just forego that for right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next, is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of staff's recommendation? That is, anyone who does not want to change the land use to allow limited multiple family dwellings. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor? So just raise your hands. I see 1, 2, 3. Okay, so would the first person please come up here and just identify yourself and go ahead. Might want to just adjust the mic.
My name is Greg Forsyth. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. I actually was one of the ones, take this off so I can hear myself a little bit better. I was actually one of the ones that actually signed the letter and attended the meeting that they talked about for the neighborhood. I was impressed with what they presented to us. My preference would be to leave it as single-family homes, and a lot of the things that were presented to us was that the City Council, the Planning Commission, were pushing for higher density for apartments, and that's something we simply don't want in the neighborhood. Our preference would be to leave it as single-family homes. And in signing the letter, my intent with that was to make sure that some of those concerns were met, and leaving it single family, or leaving it as duplexes that were single story, not two level, and also to address some of the concerns that we had of maintenance of the property in terms of landscaping and things like that. My main concern with some of the meetings, she mentioned there was 80 people invited to the meeting. The invitation to the meeting actually came out less than a week by mail to the neighborhood of those 80 people. We actually got it just 4 days before the meeting was supposed to happen. So my understanding and my thought would be that many of the people weren't able to attend because it was sent out with such little notice to actually participate in this. Of those 8 that she said that neighbors that were attending, 11 people responded. I know some of them tried to get on at the last minute as well and weren't able to attend. The major concern in leaving the council meeting, the planning commission meeting, was a lack of involvement with the neighborhood. And as we went around and collected signatures to, the numbers escape me now, but at least 40 different houses were in opposition to the project. And I'm sure that's where the 80 invitations came from of who needed to be invited to this. Most of it was just a lack of understanding of what the project would be. I think my main concern and my main desire would be, at the very least, to send this back to the Planning Commission with a PUD to be able to have a better understanding for the neighborhood and everyone involved of what exactly is going in. Even after signing the letter, I received an email from Patricia that, and the rest of the people that attended as well, that while they were acquiescing to those things that were listed in the memorandum, they said that those things couldn't be guaranteed until after this appeal was approved. So our main concern is that even if those things were improved in the memo, that those things wouldn't be able to be put into action in the new plan. So in speaking for myself and my wife, who wasn't able to attend, and I know Floyd, who's going to come up in here and talk in a few minutes and talk to many of the neighbors, a lot of the neighbors who initially signed were a little apprehensive to come tonight with everything going on in the world and COVID-19. While there is opposition, there's not a lot of people who can attend a meeting like this in the current state of the world right now, in fear of contracting disease or whatever it might be. So that might be one of the major concerns of pushing this back to the City Council to allow us to actually see those things met and allow the neighborhood to actually be addressed properly. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Forsyth. Next speaker, please.
Thank
Welcome.
you, Mayor Go, City Council. My name is Floyd Roberts, a neighbor to Gregory and some other people that's here represented. Like Gregory said, I talk to most of the neighbors. I go up and down, let them know what's going on, neighborhood watch and everything. We talk to them, we let them know what's going on. I can't count one neighbor that I spoke to is in favor of this. I can't count one neighbor is in favor of what's going on, okay? So what Gregory said, what I'm saying to you right now is that, and most of them that I spoke to is in favor of leaving it commercial. You know, they want the neighborhood, they want a piece of parlor, they want the cleaners. The closest cleaners is all the way up on White Lane. You know, so speaking to the neighbors, speaking to everyone that came in contact with me, we would love for it to stay commercial. We would love to have that shop. You know, I was like saying that the other guys, let's swap positions from over there, bring the commercial over to where we're at. So that's what we want. You know, speaking to all the neighbors, that's what we would love for it to stay that way. And, you know, that's it for right now.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. And the next speaker, please. Welcome. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Clarice Olumba. Distinguished Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members, good evening. I'm here because we came in March and we spoke of our concerns to the Planning Committee, and they recommended that the developer go back and talk to the neighbors. They did say that they spoke with us and that we're very happy about it. I live directly on Empire State Drive. I got the letter 4 days after it happened. It was dated June 12th to meet on June 18th. And I'm a busy mom. I work 2 jobs. I don't check the mail every single day, but I do check every 3 to 4 days. I went around and spoke to many of our neighbors. And what I found out was that the letter went out to people on Empire State Drive. Most of the neighbors who are on the adjacent, none of them told me that they received the letter, because I went out with that letter. I would show it to them and say, did you get this? And they said no. So it seemed to me that that letter went out to only the neighbors directly on Empire State Drive, which is not 80 people, nowhere near. I would think that if they really wanted to work with us, they would make an honest effort, you know, to hear from us and to hear from most of us, but that didn't happen. We brought up the issue of traffic and safety, because if you look at that neighborhood, there's one major way out, and this new project that they are proposing will be linked to our neighborhood. You could drive into it. So for the number of buildings that they are anticipating there and the size of the road, it's going to be a nightmare for many of us. I moved from Los Angeles about 12 years ago, and I was trying to get away from all of that. When we bought that property, we bought it with the knowledge of what the city plans to do with the land around there. And so to turn around and change it on us, you know, when property value is actually still down as of today from what we paid for it, it just doesn't feel right. So I'm hoping that at least, you know, they can go back to the drawing board and show us exactly what they are trying to do. Our preference, you know, as my neighbors have indicated, will be either to leave it the way it was planned originally, or if they really need to build homes, we're working with them and we're saying that single-family homes are okay. I mean, we're not against people. If you look at us, we're a very diverse community, and that's what we're looking for. We love people, but I think to put that many people in that small area without making sure that there is enough access to traffic and amenities, you know, then we are going to suffer it, and we're the ones who live there. So please, I would really beg you to take another look at it. You know, we want to work with them. No one wants what's best for that neighborhood more than us. You know, we love Bakersfield, and if it's fair, then we're okay with it. But at this point, what they are proposing and the way they are going about it just doesn't seem right. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of staff's recommendation? Seeing none, there's an opportunity now for the people who spoke first to rebut. We have 5 minutes. Is there anybody who wishes to speak? Ms. Newquist?
Thank you, Mayor Go. Just to address a couple of the comments that the community made. First of all, public notice is given in a 3-mile radius around this site. It's the same notice that's sent out notifying them of any public hearing. And that's the list that we obtained from staff. We used, we had run our own because I requested it on a Friday. We wanted to get the letters out on Friday. Carl Davison was out until Monday. So I actually merged my list of mailing addresses within a 3-mile radius and added the ones that we missed with Carl's list. And we had a total of 84 letters that went out. I do understand I don't pick up my mail every day during this COVID chaos that we're in the midst of, but we do apologize that you weren't able to attend. You did miss a couple key things, and if I can put them on the screen, besides sharing the pictures, the original Planning Commission, we shared this layout. That layout only had one entrance to Old River Road. And so with the connector to their neighborhood to the north at Empire State, it did provide a mess of traffic flow through their neighborhood. A little hard to see on the overhead, but we redesigned the site. This is still a conceptual plan, but right now we're dedicating the right-of-way, so this will be permanent. We're offering 2 entrance points into the duplex development from Old River, here and here. So that should eliminate any traffic moving through the adjacent neighborhood. I think that's all the comments that I have. The developers, if you'd like to come up, and thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Newquist. There you go. Welcome. You might want to raise the microphone, introduce yourself, and go ahead, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and council, and staff. It's good to be with you, and I hope that you're seeing that we've tried to address each and every complaint or question that the neighbors had. I've been involved in city government, and I've been involved in developing property.
Excuse me, sir. Your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Darrell Nicholson. Been involved in planning properties as a developer, and we feel like we are very attuned to the needs of the neighbors to the north. When you buy a property that abuts vacant property, there's always concern. Most of those houses that abut our property on the north are 2-story homes. Yet we heard the concern that they didn't want our property to be 2-story, abutting them, and we have totally agreed with that. They can look down on ours, we can't look down on theirs. That's okay. We want to be good neighbors. I think we've shown that in our development of the self-storage. It is literally one of your finest self-storages in Bakersfield, and as well as it can be done. And that's on the commercial property right now. We have plans for the commercial to develop ourselves, and it will be first class also. The goal here is first class duplex units that the city and the city council and even the planning commission can be proud of. One of the reasons we didn't reach out to the community is that staff and those that we've worked with from the very first encouraged us to put this property to zone it commercial. We chose the buffer, which is proper planning between a commercial and the residential as a duplex or apartment. We chose the duplex, which is the lowest form of multifamily. We've tried to work with everybody. We're willing to work with these folks that came tonight. We think we've met almost all their needs, especially the traffic, in that there is no viable reason for anybody on this property to go through theirs to get out. We've given them a direct access to Old River, and that should really accommodate them as far as any traffic concerns. I appreciate your time and it being late, and I'll end with that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson. And now, those who spoke second. Is there anyone who would like to rebut? We have 5 minutes for that. Just one? Welcome, Mr. Roberts. Please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Like I said, I spoke to almost every neighbor in my neighborhood, and they don't want it. And that speaks a lot. It's not like I just went up and down the street. We have a very tight-knit community. We 4th of July, we all get out, fireworks, and Thanksgiving, we bring pies. His wife, we bring over cookies. My wife take cookies. I mean, it's like a family. So we know what we want. You know, I'm not saying like we don't want anyone to tell us what we want. We know what we want. You know, we know what the community wants and what the community likes. And when we say that we would like for it to stay commercial, I mean, I think that's what we said. We would like to. I mean, it looks great, but that's what our community, that's what we said. Now, if it's improvement, yes. I mean, I'm not against if he bought the property, what the land development wants to do, that's fine, they bought it. But like Clara said, I'm from Los Angeles as well. I commute back and forth sometimes, but I know, you know, what LA traffic is like, you know, and that's why we bought there. When we bought, there was no intentions of either PUDs or complex or duplexes going in there. There's no way. If we would have known 13 years ago, 2 months and 17 days, there's no way we would have done that. But as a community, we know what we want. As a family, a tight-knit family, we know what we want. You know, so that's why I would just, to the council members, to everyone here, you know, that's what our community wants. You know, so, I mean, nothing against developers or whatever, that's great. Still be what it may, but we would love for it to stay commercial, if they could do that, or work with us in any way that they would like for us to get that community to where we could feel that we feel satisfied and it will work out better for all of us. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Is there anyone else? Go ahead. Mr. Forsythe?
Greg Forsythe again. I just want to say thank you to McIntosh and Associates, to Mr. Combs, Mr. Nichols. I think they've done a wonderful job in reaching out to the community. I think what I tried to express in my original comments is there's much more to the community than those 11 people that responded to the letter and the 8 that actually were able to attend. Something that wasn't mentioned is the time of day it was I think it was about 5:30, if my memory serves me correct. It would be nice if it was a little later in the evening so those who worked would be able to attend and see those type of things. Again, the initial reason it was rejected at the Planning Commission and sent to you here on the council was because there was a lack of involvement with the community. I think if that was sent back to the Planning Commission with that PUD to be able to allow that community involvement to happen so that we can see that these things are upheld and are actually put into place, would allow that, whatever they decide to do and whatever you as a planning commission decide to do could be more in line and could be accepted by the community and embraced by the community. As Floyd and Clarice both talked about, it's a great community. There's great people in the neighborhood who are very open and welcoming, and it would be great to, whatever goes in there, to be welcomed into the community and not have, from day one, an outset of, we don't want them here, whatever it is that goes in. So my plea to you and my recommendation, obviously I'd like to see it stay as a single family dwelling, but my indication that I've gotten in attending the Planning Commission and this is I think it's pretty low likelihood that that's going to happen. But as much as I'd love to see that happen, I'd like to see that there is a PUD where we can actually see what the final plans are, and rather than agreeing to something that isn't actually upheld, we can actually see what that's going to be in the community. And if it's great, accept it as a community, embrace it, and work together with the planners to make that happen. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Forsythe. Anyone else wishing to rebut? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and return it to council for comment and action. Councilmember Freeman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Go. Well, this is a project that I've been paying close attention to, and when it was first turned down by the Planning Commission, I called a couple of planning commissioners to find out, what happened. We have built a lot of these same duplex projects that have been very successful in the general area. They're well received, and we know we have a crisis in rental housing right now, so we know there's demand. And I said, well, what happened? And what I was told was the way the presentation was made, people wanted to know exactly what they were building. This is pretty common these days. And I don't blame them a bit. Surrounding neighbors said, well, what are you really going to build? How do we know you're really going to do that preliminary site plan? There were a couple of circulation problems, which looks like to have been solved. They wonder, what are they going to look like? And, they were concerned about, well, what about the maintenance? People, rightfully so, get concerned about rental neighborhoods and maintenance. In the meantime, and the applicant spent a great deal of time trying to address those issues. And from what I've heard tonight and seen some of the other plans they've put forward, they've come up with a definitive site plan that does solve the traffic problem. I believe they've submitted that for review, at least for comment to the planning department. I've seen it. It was shown tonight. It does solve that problem. They've submitted and shown, at least I believe they showed at their neighborhood meeting. In other presentations, they sent me the one-story, very good-looking duplexes they're conceptual, but they are largely what they're going to build, and they seem to be willing to commit that that concept will not be changed. And then I had a particular concern of my own, but I've heard it from the Planning Commission, is we want to be sure that these look like single-family. They are single-family homes, have one common wall. They look like a single-family home when you drive down the street. They wanted to be sure that the landscaping was maintained and the fronts of the houses and the conditions so that it looked like homeownership neighborhood. And I was surprised when I said I would like a covenant about that, that the developers, which you heard tonight, said they would agree. That'll be the first in the history of Bakersfield, if not California, where a duplex project has agreed is willing to agree that the ownership will maintain front yards and pay for it. It will not be up to the renters. That probably will make it look better than the single-family ownership neighborhood. So I was really surprised they were willing to do that, and I believe there's language that they submitted, and I believe Jackie Kitchen has a copy of a very restrictive covenant to maintain the property in a first-class condition. So, I have to kind of commend them for going back and doing what I'm sure everybody wishes they had done at the Planning Commission. Had they been able to address all these issues then, I think they would have had an approval. But I think it was very fair for the neighbors to say, well, we want to know exactly what we're getting. So I'm The other thing I'd like to point out is we were all once renters. I was a renter till into my 30s because I couldn't afford a home. It took me a long time to save. I started as a school teacher. I had to rent for a number of years. And, we have to provide housing for everybody, not for just the people who, most people now, the average age is more like 35, mid-30s or later to be able to buy a home. This is the highest form of rental property. So it's the highest rents. We have to remember, since we have a 1% vacancy factor, if we don't provide any new supply, what happens is people just start renting the homes in the single family neighborhoods. That's happening now because of the crisis, and I get a lot of calls about that. Trust me, that's a much bigger problem than a project would have professional maintenance of all these properties. So I think that the developer has really tried to address these concerns, and they seem to have an answer for each of the concerns we heard tonight, other than just not doing anything with the property. As a council, we have an awful lot of pressure to create multifamily housing and rental housing in Bakersfield because people can't find a rental property. So when opportunities come up, we have to look pretty hard at them. I'm hoping there's a way we can please all parties here. And so I might need a little help here from the planning director, but I wanted to ask if we were to grant the appeal, but put conditions on right here tonight as a condition upon that granting of the appeal, that the site plan that they showed us, which works, is the site plan without any substantial change, which would be up to the planning director to review and confirm. That the conceptual elevations are the look that we will have without substantial modification. That the covenant to maintain all of these front yards and the fronts of the houses will be as stated in the covenant that was submitted by the developer to Ms. Kitchen. That the wall that Tricia mentioned will be there. That each of the things they've promised to do are conditions of an approval, part of an approval attached to us granting their appeal. Can we do that?
Councilmember Freeman, this is
Yes.
Vidi. Yes, we can accept all the conditions, the covenant, the site plan, and in addition to that, you have the option of the PUD overlay where the Planning Commission would approve, or the exclusive PUD that would come to City Council at a later time.
Yeah, I understand that. I don't see any reason if all the issues have been addressed, to go back and start from scratch at Planning Commission, which is basically a review of every single thing about the project. I thought we got very good answers tonight on site plan, on traffic, on covenants. The Planning Commission would never recommend a covenant to maintain front yards. This is going kind of over and above to please the surrounding neighborhoods, that there'll be a quality project.
Councilmember Freeman, if I may address you. So if they agree to the covenant, then we can move forward with it.
Right. No, they would have to agree to all the things they have represented that they have done to satisfy the neighbor's concerns. So I'm prepared to make a motion to uphold their appeal conditioned upon them adhering to the site plan they presented tonight without substantial change, adhering to the elevations they presented tonight without substantial change, recording the covenant to maintain the landscaping and conditions of the exterior buildings, that language they've submitted, and I'm assuming can be provided to you and attached. And I believe there was also a wall, another thing Tricia mentioned that she had promised the developers would do Can someone help me with that? Tricia, are you still there?
I am. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. The developer has also committed to building the 6-foot concrete block wall between the duplex site and the neighborhood abutting the rear of the homes along Empire State Drive,
Okay.
and also providing single-story homes, single-story duplex units along that backside.
Okay, let's use that language. And with all of those conditions, I would make a motion to grant their appeal so that they can move forward with this project.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. Mr. Johnson?
Yes, if I may, the site plan, again, as was stated, is very conceptual. The city departments have not reviewed it, so we don't know if the two entrances onto the road are going to work. It just hasn't been submitted for review. Some of these may be more applicable if you did the PUD overlay, and we could condition it then at the Planning Commission. It could be part of the PCD plan at that point in time.
Is there a way, without sending it back to Planning Commission, because I feel that wastes time. We need rental properties built, move forward now, not 6 months or a year from now. Is there a way to have the site plan come directly to the planning director for approval to satisfy this requirement of 2 access points, not having to drive through the neighborhood as previously stated, and give the planning director the right to approve that site plan?
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. We just need a little conference right now, and
3-minute break.
yeah. Can we have a 3-minute break right now, and we will be right back. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Thank you. Staff, do we have some clarification, Madam City Attorney?
Yes, Honorable Mayor and council members. So Councilmember Freeman, the only way that we can move forward without the PUD overlay is to uphold the appeal today, but continue the matter so that staff has time to review the conditions and make sure that they are in compliance with what staff recommends. And the matter would be continued to August 12th. What that practically means is that the other 2 GPA zone changes that we just went over, they wouldn't become effective until August 12th, which is the next meeting.
Okay, I can live with that because I want this to be technically correct. I've been told the street plans had even been submitted so that the city has the circulation plan and the site plan. But be that as it may, I would recommend we do that unless the applicant tells us right now they don't want to do that.
I'm not understanding what you're asking for. Please clarify.
Sure.
Go ahead and clarify.
So Councilmember Freeman does not want to apply the PUD overlay to uphold your appeal. And so in order for staff to review the conditions that were brought up by Ms. Newquist, we need time to review and make sure that they're going to be in compliance with what we require. And so in order to review those conditions, we need to continue the matter to the next meeting, which is August 12th. And at that time, we would take up the matter again through public hearings.
Can we get clear on what matter we're taking up again?
Yes, so basically that the conditions, the site plan review, the covenant, the new site plan that was provided, that it complies with everything that city requires in order to move forward with the plan.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out what the motion is then. I wanted all those conditions. Are you saying we approve anything tonight? Or we approve it conditional upon your being satisfied with these technical aspects by the next council meeting.
Councilmember Freeman, our city attorney, is going to clarify that.
Councilmember Freeman, you would not be the action you would be taking tonight is a motion to continue with directions to staff to look at the site plan submitted tonight by the appellant, to look and make sure there's no substantial change, to look at the covenants that they submitted, as well as any other items that they submitted with a blue memo. So your motion is a motion to continue.
And then on August 12th, this would be brought up for a report from staff on whether they had been able to accomplish these things?
Correct. It would be another hearing because we're continuing it to a date certain. And at that time, staff will hopefully be able to come back to you and your colleagues and say that everything is good, ready to go. And then at that time, you have the option then to go ahead and uphold the appeal.
Can we confine the hearing to these conditions, these items that the staff is scrutinizing?
Well, I haven't heard from any of your other colleagues. Assuming that your colleagues agreed with you, I think the answer would be yes, although staff, when they review the conditions, they may have some other conditions that may dovetail with what you're suggesting tonight. So I would caution you on that.
Okay, well, I would still like to have some language that would limit these to the hearing to technical issues as opposed to rehearing the entire project all over again.
Understood.
So then I guess that's that's my motion, is to continue the hearing on this project to give staff time to tie down if all of the promises the developer has made are technically feasible.
Correct. That is the motion. That would be correct.
Okay.
Question, can we go ahead and request a PUD overlay and get approval?
Well, that is
Madam
one-
City Attorney?
That is one of the options, but that's not what the motion on the table is.
So we have some other requests to speak from council members. First, Councilmember Smith, then Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I'm following and I think I'm in agreement with the motion. I'm not sure because of, it's 1 month till we meet again, whether it's really going to save time or there might be a faster way. But I did have a couple of other comments. Ms. Norquist mentioned a 3-mile radius on the notification with 84 addresses. It seems like it's probably a 300-foot radius. I'd like some clarification on that just for the record. And also the gentleman mentioned twice that he wanted it to stay commercial, and I think the commercial to the south is staying commercial and they're going to develop it, but this particular property is zoned R1 and the request is to change it to R2. And one other thing I would like to bring up is, and this I guess is a question for Councilmember Freeman, whether he wanted to include this in the conditions or to have staff look at it. The developer mentioned that they are getting ready to improve Panama and Old River around the commercial site. And I think that if that is actually a condition also, then that helps traffic and makes everything.
Can I respond?
Councilmember Freeman, go ahead. And then if we need Mrs. Newquist to clarify.
The reason I wouldn't include that in this is the commercial is a separate project, with separate conditions and timing. And I think it gets too complex to start conditioning one project on another project. So I think if they develop the commercial, they clearly will have to do all that. I don't know the status of that, if their plans are approved and they're about to start construction. But I don't really want to mix the two projects up, so I wouldn't want to add that as a condition to this one. We have enough complicated conditions.
Thank you. Mrs. Newquist, would you like to respond to Councilmember Smith's questions, please?
Yes, Councilmember Smith, I misspoke. It is 300 feet, not 3 miles. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, that's all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sullivan.
You know, I got the impression that the council member, that Bruce was trying to avoid the overlay, but then I heard the owner mention that they would be willing to have the overlay, and I don't think Bruce heard that.
We prefer not to have the overlay, but we're getting delayed approval on our project, and we don't, it sounds like.
So which, I think Bruce needs to know which you would prefer.
Would you come to the microphone, please, and address this? Councilmember Freeman cannot hear.
Yeah, I would like to know if the developer would prefer to go back
Right.
to planning commission with the PCD overlay.
Councilmember Freeman, we're having them come to the
Go to
microphone.
the,
Right here. He cannot hear you because he's on Zoom. Mr. Combs?
hold on.
All right. Mr.
You wanna-
Nicholson? Whoever.
Your Honor and Counsel, we would prefer a definite answer from you. We are in the process of bidding out the street improvements, and that should be an important part both to the city and to the residents to the north. They will have a sidewalk all the way down, they will have a widened road, and this is, we can't bid it till we have the rights to do it, and we know what's actually involved. We've tried to mitigate every part of it.
Right.
We're willing to give you assurances, if, whatever assurances, because we're going to be honorable and do what we say to you. And you
Bruce?
can hold us to that.
Bruce, it seems like we could, I think it's a wonderful project. I support it. And it seems like we could approve, staff. Can we approve the project and then have with the condition that it meets the city standard? So we would be giving them approval, but then it would have but I guess we still have to have the final approval.
And we can't do anything till city staff approves the road work within the development. I mean, there's no way we can, until we get a permit, we can't just go out there and do anything. We're going to do what we're telling them now. And we would appreciate an approval so that we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nicholson.
I don't think I'm hearing they want to go back to planning commission. I think, as imperfect as it is, the 1-month delay to tie down these technical aspects is the fastest way for them to be able to move forward. So I'll stay with my previous motion of how we continue this.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. Colleagues, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Seeing none, you have a motion. City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Parlier?
Aye.
Councilmember Rivera? Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Weir?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Aye.
And Councilmember Sullivan?
Aye.
Motion is approved with Councilmember Rivera absent.
Thank you. And that concludes our items with the exception of council and mayor statements. Colleagues, is there anyone who wishes to speak at this point? Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to be brief. In February, I made a referral to staff that the Planning and Development Committee consider the adoption of a vacant building ordinance and explore other strategies to build a more robust toolkit to address chronic nuisance properties. In researching and working on an issue with code enforcement and staff at 2825 California and Oleander, I learned of some other tools that we might want to consider. So I'd like to make a referral tonight that staff continue to build a chronic nuisance property toolkit to include a lien forgiveness strategy and also a purchase and sell back program. I learned from the treasurer and tax collector through a communication on July 15th that there is an option for a taxing entity, including the city, to purchase property via an agreement sale. And so I'd like to pursue that and possibly use 2825 California Avenue as a case study for this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gonzalez. Colleagues, anyone else wishing to make a comment at this point?
Yeah, I was trying to.
Councilmember Freeman, you have to press your little hand. Please go ahead and speak. I know it's difficult, and we appreciate everybody trying to coordinate this so we can hear each other. So, Councilmember Freeman, yes.
Very quickly, just in relating to this duplex project, I want to thank the people, the homeowners who did take the time to tell us of the problems they had. It is important that you speak up so that we know there's a circulation problem. We know that there's a concern about what the elevation things will look like, that we, I hope we split the baby well enough tonight, but because we do have to remember, we were all once renters. Most of the people renting are just people who just aren't as old as us, and they haven't been able to buy their first home yet. And those are the people who work for us at work, maybe. Those are our own children. We got to think about everybody. And I think this could be a very nice project, but I just want us to be a bit inclusive in realizing that, just because you make a little less money like you did 20 years ago, doesn't make you a bad person. Just makes you younger, working your way up. And, that weighs heavily on me when we have opportunities to provide real first-class multifamily housing that, we really have to look hard at these things. So thank you, and I hope this all can work out.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman, and I see that we do have some of the people who left here in the lobby, and they are listening. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councilmember Sullivan.
Yes, very briefly. Yes, and the article Monday was just so timely, pointing out the fact that we do have a housing shortage, and being able to have nice areas, nice places to rent is really very, very important for a city and a community. So, but I wanted to mention about the 4th of July. We were not able, as we know, to have the series that we do have at Beale Park. And so Diane Hoover and Holly Arnold and others worked together and were able to Zoom, maybe that's the term, to Zoom the band concert. It was put on at our convention center, and so it played on the 4th of July. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. I believe it's on the city website, isn't it? So people can enjoy it. Just the perfect selections, and it was just wonderful. The very next best thing than actually being there. And then it's also on the symphony website. So appreciate everybody working together and giving us the opportunity to continue with that tradition and have a wonderful celebration for our country on the 4th. So that was truly a team effort, and it was wonderful. We appreciated it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan. Vice Mayor. That's an old one. All right, is there anyone else wishing to speak, council members? Councilmember Freeman, unless that was your hand up from before.
No, mine says lower hand.
Lower hand, okay. So seeing that, thank you all. Lots of hard work and effort going into tonight. Thank you for your participation. To our public and staff, thank you very much. And with that, we're adjourned at 9:18.